Okay, so we're going to be talking about Trump giving Ghislane Maxwell limited immunity and much more. So let's get into it. All right. On this Tuesday morning. Hard Talks Radio, live in 4K. Appreciate the ones coming to listen. Don't forget to drop a comment, and subscribe. That's about it. Feel like going to the Cash App, it's Hard Talk Radio 792. Radio 792. Let's get into it.
Case, President Trump refusing to rule out pardoning Ghislane Maxwell, who's currently serving 20 years behind bars for sex trafficking. The president, on his way to Scotland, said, "I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about." Meanwhile, sources tell ABC News Maxwell received limited immunity for her 2 days of meetings. Tonight about what she was asked. Here's ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky.
Good morning. Tonight, President Trump's refusing to rule out a pardon for Jeffrey Epstein's former companion, Ghislane Maxwell, who's now serving 20 years in prison for sex trafficking teenage girls.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislane Maxwell if she cooperated?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
As the president spoke, Maxwell was meeting for the second day in a row with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who until recently was Trump's personal lawyer. Trump once socialized with Maxwell and Epstein. When Epstein was arrested in 2019, Trump said they'd had a falling out and hadn't spoken in 15 years. Maxwell has long faced questions.
Ask you about all the allegations that have come out, Ghislane.
Happy New Year.
When she was arrested, the president said he wished her well. Sources tell ABC News it was Maxwell who requested this week's meetings with the Deputy Attorney General, and that she was granted a limited form of immunity so she could answer questions without fear it could later be used against her.
She was asked maybe about 100 different people. She answered questions about everybody. And she didn't hold anything back.
In May, Attorney General Pam Bondi reportedly told the president his name appeared in the Justice Department's Epstein files multiple times. Trump denies that briefing ever happened.
It happened in May, Trump. It happened in May. All right. A lot of people want to say, he's still let it say. No. Okay. I don't know what to tell you guys, but the answer is no. I really don't. You just, nah. Okay. Major breaking news. Ms. Ghislane Maxwell was granted limited immunity by the Department of Justice. During her meetings with the Department of Justice, Maxwell answered questions for about 9 hours over 2 days. Trump administration gave immunity to a child predator. Never forget that. Okay.
Reason to answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the ability.
There is every reason to fear that Donald Trump could offer Ghislane Maxwell a pardon in exchange for silence or even worse, phony exoneration.
Answered all the questions.
What do you think she would ask for? What do you think she would ask for? Okay, she's a child predator. All right, and she is doing double digits in prison. You don't think she would ask for something like that? Okay. And the fact that the president would give her limited immunity, yeah, that says something. That says something. Okay. It says that she got something on him. Don't be surprised if he pardons her. Alan Dershowitz, who's very close to Epstein and serves as an attorney for both, Trump called for Ghislane Maxwell to be given immunity just a few days ago. Let's see.
Do you think that would...
Just because somebody's name is mentioned doesn't really mean very much.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always a good caution. You mentioned Ghislane Maxwell. She's still got...
Bill Clinton's name was mentioned and everybody's howling. Everybody was howling for Bill Clinton. But when Trump, oh, man, you don't know. Just because his name was mentioned doesn't mean he did anything there. Names mentioned in multiple flight logs there. Okay. I mean, for some, eventually you got to grow up. Because I swear, if this was Biden, okay, you all would not be having this type of grace. Okay? You all would not be having that at all.
An appeal I'm tracking at the Supreme Court. But in the meantime, you suggest she should be potentially offered congressional immunity to go and testify. Do you think that would happen? What kind of information would she have that we haven't seen?
She knows everything. She is the Rosetta Stone. She knows everything. She arranged every single trip with everybody. She knows everything. And if she were just given use immunity, she could be compelled to testify. I'm told that she actually would be willing to testify, and there'd be no reason for her to withhold any information. So I don't see any negative in giving her the kind of use immunity that would compel her to testify. Just because somebody's name is mentioned, that doesn't really mean very much.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always a good caution. You mentioned Ghislane Maxwell.
Just because it, man. Oh. I don't know what to tell you guys. You guys really have to open your eyes and understand that you're being played. That's it. You are being played. He doesn't care about you. He called you guys weaklings for even trying to get information. I'm like, did you do it, Trump?
So we're just learning now from ABC that Donald Trump's Department of Justice. Gave Ghislane Maxwell, a convicted sex trafficker, a limited form of immunity before they spoke with her. I gotta say, the cover-up that we are seeing right now, everything happening with this Trump administration, it has to be the single most corrupt thing that I have ever seen in a presidential administration. Normally, you would give somebody this kind of immunity before their trial or before the trial of somebody like a Jeffrey Epstein, not after the person has already been convicted and is serving out their sentence. Here's the reporting from ABC's Catherine Falders. She writes anew, Ghislane Maxwell, whose sources told ABC News initiated the meetings with the Department of Justice, answered questions for about 9 hours over 2 days after being granted a limited form of immunity, sources tell me. Then she adds, the so-called proffer immunity is commonly granted to individuals seeking to make cooperators in a criminal case. Maxwell has already been tried, convicted, and sentenced for sex trafficking underage girls. I mean, clearly the optics of this are insane, but everything about this is insane. And the more Trump takes steps like this, the guiltier he seems. Don't let them sweep this under the rug. Spread the word. Add the Midas Touch podcast on Apple Podcast.
Sorry about that. Let's keep going. Yeah, he's pretty much cooked. Pretty much.
I don't know. It's very famous.
Like I said, he should have never ran for office. Okay, he should have never ran for office. You have this much dirt on you. You are not eligible to run for president because sooner or later this was going to come back to bite you. He should have stayed as a Democrat. He should have stayed with his millions and nobody would try to come for him. Nobody. Okay, with the amount of dirt you have, but you felt you were untouchable. Okay? And that's the thing with, you know, being raised with white supremacist views and stuff like that. You think you're untouchable. And you feel you can get away with anything because you have money. But you piss off the right billionaire. And that's what happened. He pissed off Elon Musk. And Elon Musk was like, Trump's in the Epstein files. Everybody knew that, but now you got a fellow billionaire and white supremacist saying that? What? And then you had a little, girl fight over on the internet. Okay. Without me, Trump would have never won the election. Confirmed another thing we already knew. Too many people hated his guts. Too many people already warned about what Trump was about. And all of a sudden, he just won those swing states. Yeah. All's coming out. My dad's a Republican, and he doesn't know. I think Fox News lies about everything. Yeah, you can't. both media channels lie. You have to really dig for the truth and look for alternative media sites that will tell you the truth. Okay, especially when it came to the witches brew epidemic. Okay, you have to look at you have to start looking for alternative media sites, and you look at both sides, and then you have to try and find the truth, because both sides are owned by the same entities. Okay, that's what they don't tell you. All right. And you have people fighting left and right like they're sports teams, when it really should be like, what side is actually doing right, doing policies that help the American people, not just a bunch of billionaires. And then even with that, you have to understand the fact that the Zionists own both Republican and Democrat. Okay. BlackRock owns both liberal and conservative media outlets. Okay. Like, there's a lot of things you have to dig to find out. Okay. And people will call you crazy. But it's crazy to think that all this time we only have two political parties. Okay. And to give you the illusion of choice when you find out both parties are owned by Zionism. So you don't really have a choice. It's an illusion of choice, because whoever you choose, they still win.
Donald Trump is having an awful Sunday. He's being hit with more terrible news, as I mentioned before. The people in Scotland are protesting. And
you run to another country when asked questions about this issue? You run to another country. That's really going to show that you have nothing to hide.
Him, but he was being questioned by the media while he was golfing about his connections with Jeffrey Epstein, and he literally ran away from the media. And then his Secret Service detail started playing music loudly so that he wouldn't even hear the questions that he was being asked.
Why are you doing that? Why are you following stupid commands? Play loud music for what? What are you playing loud music for? Have him... That's it. He has to do. Your Secret Service is supposed just to protect the president. That's it. Protect the president from actual threats, not questions.
While he was golfing on the taxpayer dime. Hey, when you're golfing on the taxpayer dime of both the people of Scotland and America, and you're being asked why the GOP now stands for Guardians of Pedos because of you, maybe you should answer the question and not like a 5-year-old spoiled brat. No offense to them, start turning up the music and go, oh, I can't hear. Here, play this clip.
Are you enjoying the Scottish hospitality?
There were Sky News questions, sure.
Mr. Trump, can you escape the Jeffrey Epstein crisis?
Maybe that's why we heard this.
What's that song?
I don't know, it's very famous.
It's from a musical.
Yeah. Music boomed out from the convoy of golf carts, drowning out the surrounding sound.
So as my friend Brian Tyler Cohen writes, so this is how desperate Trump is to distract from Epstein. Denaturalize Rosie O'Donnell is what he posted about recently. He wants to make sure he changes the ingredients in Coca-Cola, threatening the...
Why would you want to change the ingredients in Coca-Cola? What are you doing, Donald? Why would you want to do that to the American people, Donald? What? Who told you to do that, Donald? Who told you to do that? That's why I say presidents are not elected. They are selected, and they have masters. JFK was right. Look up that speech about what he says about a shadow government. We are under a shadow government that controls the food supply, what we eat, and what we drink.
Washington commanders that if they don't change their name to a slur, he won't allow them to build in D.C. Hillary's emails are, again, the biggest issue right now that his regime talks about. He wants to arrest Obama, arrest Kamala, arrest Oprah, arrest Beyonce, arrest Al Sharpton. Those are all the posts that he's been making that we've been covering.
Here's the thing, okay? High fructose corn syrup is an American Coca-Cola when it should be sugarcane, which is a Mexican Coca-Cola. That's why it's better for you. Okay, first off, why you want to trust Trump with changing anything in your diet. Okay? Like he's actually going to put actual healthy stuff in your food and drink when he's always eating McDonald's. I wouldn't trust him, just like I wouldn't trust Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the man who spoke out against the witch's brew, and now you're joining the person who supported the witch's brew. That makes no sense.
He then posted this.
This is why I say you got to look up alternative media sources. Robert F. Kennedy's not on the right side of history. He's saying a lot of nonsensical crap. Remember, he was against the witch's brew, even wrote a book on it. And now you're siding with the person who promoted the witch's brew. Then saying some nonsense that blacks should just accept racism. Just deal with it, and compared it to him being a Catholic. Sir, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And there were blacks who just sat there and took it like cowards. It couldn't be me, because I'd get up in his face. What the hell are you talking about? What are you talking about? This is stupid. I'm not taking, I would just say, is that brain worm eating up any good common sense in your brain, Mr. Robert F. Kennedy? Because let me tell you this, you wouldn't say tell Jews, you should just accept anti-Semitism. You should just accept having swastikas put on your cars and on your houses and burned on your front lawns. Yeah, you should just take it and then, build resilience. And then it could just bounce off you like Avengers. You wouldn't hear Robert F. Kennedy say that, but he wants blacks to just take racism. Just sit there and take it. And if you stand up for yourself, oh, you're complaining.
Video from Mark Levin from Fox. This is a massive Obama scandal, everybody. Whoa, it's the massive Obama scandal that's going on right now. And then Trump posts this, a must-watch. Mark Levin flashes back to the first time he exposed Obama in 2017. All right, look, Donald, we know your name is all over the Epstein files. We know that your name is all over the files that have been released. We know that Mar-a-Lago was used as a location where Epstein found underage girls like Virginia Giuffre, who Ghislane Maxwell walked over, found her as a towel girl. After Giuffre was homeless, she got a job at Mar-a-Lago. Then she was sex trafficked by Epstein. And of course, we also know how Epstein, according to multiple lawsuits and in the sentencing memorandum, 14-year-old girl Jane Doe was brought over to Mar-a-Lago by Epstein. And then, according to the 14-year-old underage girl, Epstein pointed at her and said to Donald Trump, "You like this little one? You like this little one? We know what you were up to, okay? When you and Epstein would bring in 30 girls and say that they were going to meet VIPs from the modeling industry. Don't think we're stupid. We know why."
It's just sick, man. The more you find out about Trump and Epstein, the more it's like, it's hard to do these videos. It's becoming harder and harder. I couldn't really watch the Katie Johnson situation. It's just her testimony. I couldn't really watch it. And I couldn't really read those court documents. I couldn't, because it was graphic. And it's like, who are you? But this is too much, man. This is too much. I'm looking to Virginia Giuffre's. Okay, I used to be watched by Epstein's hidden cameras, which I have seen myself. The FBI has the archive footage showing me being abused by other men and used as blackmail. From Virginia Giuffre's diary, she committed suicide in April. This is what was what I just read. Prince Edward needs to be in prison. I'm making this publicly known that in no way, in shape, or form am I suicidal. I have made this known to my therapist and GP. If something happens to me, in the sake of my family, do not let this go, and help me protect them. Too many evil people want me to be quieted. Just, oh man, it's hard. Shit.
Prince Andrew with his arm around her, and they show that picture. I got the picture. Virginia Giuffre
you know, she was one of the famous victims, right? And so there's pictures of her.
Right, she's the blonde that's standing with
Prince Andrew.
Is Dennis Rodman gay? What does that have to do with the conversation, man? Kirsty, what does that have to do with the conversation? I just want to know, what does that have to do with the conversation? All right, you know what? Goodbye, Kirsty. Goodbye. Here's some things to know about my channel. I don't put up with racism and ignorant talks. All right. Not gonna put up with it. And that's that. We're all grown. We're all adults. You don't like what's here? Leave. That's it. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Arm around her, and they show that picture. I got the picture, but she, you know, you might not know this. She, you know, where she started work and where she first got trafficked by, it was Ghislane Maxwell, who was her prime handler. Mar-a-Lago. She was a bus girl or something, a servant at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's place.
That's weird.
That's where she first got introduced. Her dad apparently kept immaculate condition of the tennis courts. So that's who she is.
Interesting.
Anyway, this is her diary where she said, I used
something, the footage. I used to be watched by Epstein's hidden cameras, which I've seen myself. You have the archive footage showing me being abused. Blackmail.
Okay. So there's a lot stacking up here.
Oh, yeah. Let's not forget that the Democrats voted against Trump being impeached. So it's not just the Republicans supporting Trump, it's Democrats. Told people before, it's not the left, it's not the right, it's not a left or right thing. They're a uni party. Okay? And they get super protective when they're being blackmailed. Okay? And definitely when it's for Israel. When Israel's involved, both sides team up.
He comes out with that super clumsy memo on Sunday to see how it's going to go. It goes over like an absolute lead balloon on Twitter, at least. Right?
I've never heard that before.
It just absolutely cratered. I think they released the balloon and it flew right into like a thorn bush and popped. Right? It just didn't work out.
Yep.
And now they're in deep damage control, but the damage has been done. MAGA's been split. There's a lot of people. This is the last straw. I'm one of them. Like, nope, this is unacceptable. There's certain lines you can't cross, right? And this is one of them. We do not traffic our own children for fun, amusement, and profit. Obviously, you know, Epstein profited handsomely from this, going from a nobody school teacher to worth over $500 million, right?
From 1,000 victims. That's a lot of.
And you got Republicans still trying to defend this dude. Okay? Still trying to. Still trying to defend her. Defend him. Sorry.
I started going to him when I was like 14, 15. We were underage. We were little girls. I was 16. I was 16. I started going to him when I was like 14, 15, 14 turning 15. By the time I was 16, I brought him up to 75 girls, all the ages of, 14, 15, 16, people going from 8th grade to 9th grade at just school parties is where I recruit him from. All Jeffrey cared about was go find me more girls. His appetite was insatiable. He couldn't stop. He wanted new, fresh, young faces every single day. He needs to be behind bars. He needs to be behind bars for the rest of his life. There is way too many girls for him not to be. That's just mind-blowing.
Those are just a few stories from the more than 80 alleged victims of serial child molester Jeffrey Epstein, left voiceless by the U.S. justice system. Now, some lawmakers are demanding an investigation into the Department of Justice's extremely lenient deal for Epstein in 2007. The case has gained renewed interest after the Miami Herald reported that federal prosecutors, led by then U.S. Attorney and now Labor Secretary Alex Acosta, entered into a secret deal with Epstein that allowed him to spend just 13 months in county jail when they had enough evidence to put him away for life. Yesterday, Senator Ben Sasse fired off a series of letters, including one to the Inspector General of the Justice.
Well, he was a Mossad agent, and that's why lawyers who are trying to put him in prison were told to back off.
Department calling Epstein a monster and writing that the, quote, pathetically soft sentence is a travesty that should outrage us all. Joining us now is the investigative reporter behind the Miami Herald expose, Julie Brown. Julie, good morning. Thank you for being with us. This is just an extraordinary string of reporting from you and your team at the Miami Herald. People can read it on the website. But I just want to lay out some facts for people who sort of just tuning into this story. The FBI in that indictment listed the accounts of 32 women, but you found more than 80 women. Tell us about some of the digging you did to get their stories.
Well, this case has been around for many years. A lot of reporters have followed it and done some very good work on this, but it is now a decade later. And after Alex Acosta got nominated as labor secretary, that I remembered this case and I thought, you know, where are these girls now? You know, now they're in their late 20s, early 30s. And I wonder.
Yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy. Robert Acosta. He was trying the Epstein case and he was told to back off.
Nominated as labor secretary, that I remembered this case and I thought, you know, where are these girls now? You know, now they're in their late 20s, early 30s. And I wonder what they think, quite frankly, about this and how did this affect them? And so I decided the only way I was, all their names were all secret, of course, because they were minors at the time. So I had to really dig through a lot of court files in the hopes of finding clues on who these women are now today. So it did take me quite a few months to get a list of names together. And I wanted to find out exactly, you know, how their lives have gone and what they thought. I mean, when you're adult women, you think of things a lot differently than when you're 14 years old when this happened. And of course, I found a few, I tracked down many of them. They didn't want to talk, most of them, but I did find a few that were willing to talk. And they really felt betrayed by Alex Acosta, who was the Miami prosecutor at the time who signed off on this lenient plea deal.
So, Julie, there's
a real prosecutor would have been like, told the government and told the Secret Service, I'm prosecuting Epstein. I am prosecuting to the fullest extent of the law. I don't care what price I got to pay. I'm going to prosecute him. And unfortunately, we don't have that type of backbone in our society. It's only seen in the movies most of the time.
53-page indictment that the FBI helped put together. Prosecutors certainly felt like they'd made their case with all that testimony. So many of their stories from these young women, girls, let's call them what they were at the time, girls, lined up. They told a version of the same story. So how did this plea deal happen? Take us inside Alex Acosta and the deal he made with Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, this case, from the very beginning, the police were the only people, the Palm Beach police were the only people that were really on the girl's side, so to speak. They were trying to convince first the state prosecutor to prosecute him, and that failed. And then they took it to the FBI, and finally it ended up under Alex Acosta's purview. And he had worked for a pretty a big law firm, Kirkland and Ellis. And what Epstein did shrewdly was hire a bunch of attorneys with ties to that law firm, Kenneth Starr, Jay Lefkowitz, a couple other people who were pretty powerful, shrewd lawyers who also had connections to the Bush administration, which was in office at the time that this deal happened. So these lawyers really put a lot of pressure on Acosta, who was a Republican at the time, and still is. And, it became increasingly clear that he had to make a tough decision whether he was going to go with, prosecuting Epstein despite all this pressure or cutting a deal, which is eventually what he did.
So, Julie, first of all, congratulations on this report. And it's one of the reasons that newspapers have to remain in existence.
Yeah, unfortunately, Trump is trying to find a way to crush free press. Okay. A lot of these MAGAs don't understand you're going into fascism, okay? Whether it's left or right, we were going into fascism. You don't believe me about and a lot of people who are Democrats say, we weren't going into fascism with Biden. Really? We weren't going into fascism with Biden? That's why I say you cannot be with this left-right paradigm, all right? You cannot be like, well, the left, with Joe Biden, we didn't have these problems. Joe Biden was a saint. No, he wasn't. and neither was his son, Hunter. Okay? We all know what Hunter was doing. Okay? We all know what Joe Biden was doing when it came to that. When he went to Ukraine and said, I have $1 million, get my son off of being prosecuted by that prosecutor, and you could have the $1 million. Okay? And guess what? The prosecutor was fired. The government, Joe Biden bribed the Ukrainian government, and Hunter Biden was free, only to be on crack and beating up young underage women. Okay? Newsins, we have to believe women while they are alive. We cannot wait for them to die, saying, oh, okay, maybe she was in pain. Okay? Matlis reflects on Virginia Giuffre, a woman who was unafraid to point the finger at those in power, took her own life at 41. And she's saying she didn't take her own life. So let's hear where she's interviewing this scumbag Prince Andrew. And mind you, for those who don't know, Prince Andrew's also was involved in a situation where he abused two minors in a bar in Kyiv, and nothing happened to him.
July of this year, Epstein was arrested on charges of sex trafficking and abusing dozens of underage girls. One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001. She says she dined with you, danced with you at Tramp nightclub in London. She went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislane Maxwell, your friend. Your response?
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her? I did with Prince Andrew in 2019. And the person about was Virginia Giuffre, formerly Roberts. On Saturday morning, I woke just before 4 a.m., jolted awake by the radio playing softly beside me that reported her death by suicide at the age of 41. I never met Virginia Giuffre, but our paths crossed curiously through that interview. She claimed the prince had sex with her 3 times as a 17-year-old when she was trafficked through his good friend Ghislane Maxwell and her boyfriend, the now notorious paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. It was an allegation Prince Andrew vehemently denied to me. Virginia lived a hellish existence by all accounts, abused first by a family friend at the age of 7, then trapped into modelling as a teenager by a man who promised her fame but delivered yet more sexual abuse. She ran away from home. She lived life on the edges, ended up in hostels and children's institutions. And perhaps the worst irony was that when she finally returned to her family, ready to start a steady job, turn her life around at the Florida beach club, Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago, she was then fatally introduced to Epstein. She was flown around the world as a sex toy for him and his friends until finally she ran away to Thailand. She married an Australian man 10 days after they first met. This was her escape from a life of abuse, and she remained in the shadows until the FBI came knocking, asking what she could tell them of Epstein, a man who would never face the consequences of his actions, even after his initial arrest, until his own suicide in jail in August of 2019.
We all know that he's still alive. The reports that his bank account is still moving.
When Virginia finally told her story to the Mail in 2011, she spoke out for other victims of sexual abuse. She started campaigning for them through her charity, SOAR. She was unafraid to point the finger at those in power, those who made her life unbearable. After Epstein's death, she wanted to face Prince Andrew in court. He agreed to a settlement of millions, but never admitted guilt. She gave much of that money to her campaign. We didn't hear much from her in the subsequent years until a random odd post nearly a month ago. She suggested she'd been caught in a car crash and had just days to live. And at that point, the tone seemed to change. In the weeks after, people who'd barely spoken to me about the interview would ask me what I thought, if I thought Giuffre was
in fact, a fantasist, somebody who'd made her own story up? What if she wasn't to be believed, they asked? What if she was a bit unhinged? What would I feel then? All that changed this weekend when she took her own life. Suddenly, that...
What are you talking about, free Prince Andrew? Everybody look at Cameron Lee. Free Prince Andrew. So you're a PDF file defender? Shabbat Khan, free Epstein? Free Epstein. Shabbat. So that was your daughter. You're okay with that? Shabbat Khan? You're okay with that? Don't be a coward now. Don't be a coward. You think that's okay? Free Epstein. You think that's okay, Shabbat Khan? Or we already know about your faith, though. We already know about your faith, the Islamic faith, that Muhammad was okay with marrying 9-year-old girls. You know, we know what he did with Aisha. We know why there are millions of Muslim women running from Islamic countries every year because of men like you. Goodbye, Shabbat Khan.
Muttering stopped. A dead victim was somehow a believable victim. It made me feel really uneasy because it suggests that we can only believe victims of sexual abuse once they've literally lost their lives to suicide, as if that last act of self-torture proved that they were speaking the truth all along. That cannot be right. We have to believe women whilst they're alive. We cannot wait for them to die before we say, oh, okay, maybe she was in pain. Now she's calmly, Ophelia-like, drifting away.
You had the facts, you had the evidence. I'm not too much into believe women. I'm into the facts and the evidence. Facts, evidence, witnesses. Facts, evidence, witnesses. We can't say believe women because we have some evil women out there like Amber Heard who tried to screw over Johnny Depp. All right. She cheated on him with Elon Musk. Okay. She basically assaulted Johnny Depp, tried to play that she was a victim. Turns out Johnny Depp was a victim and Johnny Depp won the case. And until this day, you still have feminists trying to say Johnny Depp was the bad guy and Amber Heard was the victim. So we can't just say believe women. We have the facts, we have the evidence. Virginia Giuffre and many other women, there was facts and evidence. And with that, we can believe women. And with that, Epstein should have been put in prison. All right. Wow. This is madness, man. It's madness. She exposed Ghislane Maxwell and Prince Andrew survived the bus crash before she died by suicide. She did not die by suicide. She did not die by suicide. It's not what happened. Second.
Of the Epstein files. Ryan, it's a pleasure. I know.
Listen, if you've been wanting to get your hands on
the middle of the night and it's already tomorrow where you are. Thank you very much for joining.
I find it interesting that Matt Gaetz, who was a dude that was a total scumbag, slept with a 17-year-old girl, was passing around pornographic material to his fellow congressmen, still has gigs where he could do advertisements. I find it interesting.
July 14th, 2025. Ryan Dawson will be here in just a moment. Here he is from South Korea to talk to us about the nature and extent of research, which is extraordinary and second to none on the issue of the. And it's a pleasure. I know it's the middle of the night and it's already tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, thank you. This is kind of cathartic for me. I started research before somebody wrote this fine book. You might know him.
Oh, you're very kind. You're very kind. Thank you for having it. Thank you for reading it. We've admired each other's work for a long time. Give us the big picture here before we get into the latest raging dispute over here in the States about the Justice Department's absurd contention that the client list doesn't exist. Give us the big picture. Who was Epstein? How did he?
Yeah, Ghislane, you can't get into politics without having some blackmail material on you. Yes, as the farther you go up, there's a ceiling, and you have to be willing to do. The farther you go, there's a ceiling for certain positions because you have to be dirty just like them. You have to be. And that's why politics isn't really, it's not worth it. It really isn't. It's not worth it to do that. You're not going to change the world. It's all a lie. You know, you may be able to change your district, maybe your state in some ways, but actually think you're going to change the world. That's a lie. You have to be willing to do dirt, and you have to get your hands dirty to do what they want you to do, not what you want to do. And if you have that mentality and you still want to keep that mentality to try and change the world, you're going to be ruined or you're going to end up in a box.
Make his money, and what went on in that island?
Well, it's islands, plural, actually. So a lot of people, they know about Little St. Jeffreys. He also bought Greater St. Jeffreys. And that is, every time I hear the island, people need to understand that the activity that went on those islands also happened in Florida and New York and New Mexico and Ohio and in Paris. He had properties all over the place. And the pedophilia and other acts and trafficking happened in all those locations. And that started long before he had his islands. And it also happened on St. Thomas. He had an office in St. Thomas, and he had half the government there working for him.
Wow. What was his source of wealth? How is it that he had a home in Paris and New York City, and that he literally owned these islands?
In the beginning, it was mostly Les Wexner. I can give you a background on him too. Les Wexner. Everybody, by the way, who cares? I mean, sweetheart deal aside, you can still boycott Victoria's Secret. You can boycott Seagram's Liquor. You can at least avoid the products of the people involved in this. Plus, they're prominent Zionists that support genocide and shooting babies anyway. So that's enough reason. In league with Jeffrey Epstein. He got a lot of money, principally from, I'd say his top three. Well, obviously Wexner and Bronfman, and then Leon Black, and then Glenn Dubin. That was his principal financing. And then a lot of it he got illegally. And his companies, he was able to get huge tax breaks for example, in the Virgin Islands, 300 million in tax breaks simply by bribing or blackmailing, we don't know which one, but using his skills to get the legislators to change the rules for him.
Well, and what occurred on these islands, without getting too graphic, it is sex with underage women, and women brought there underage for the purpose of engaging in acts of prostitution. The latter defined under federal statute as sex trafficking. This is what P. Diddy was just tried for and acquitted.
Well, P. Diddy's going to get nailed in the civil suits, but it did have underage, we call it prostitution. I would just call it rape because you can't consent if you're underage. But there was also prostitution. There were plenty of girls who were barely of age. It was a mixture. When you're targeting people, not everybody's into kids. So you got to use whatever bait they had. But he had a lot of girls, over 250. I would pose a question to you. How much money do you think was paid out in lawsuits related to Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I saw a number because you told us about it, involving J.P. Morgan Chase, that I believe approached 300 million. Now, I was stunned when I saw that. Do I have that number right?
So that's a big chunk of it. 290 million from one of the lawsuits from JP Morgan Chase. They also had to pay out, ends up being about 105 plus another 30 million cash when to sell off the properties on the islands. But no, the total is 800 million, 807,800,000 when you combine them all, because they also had to pay out, ends up being about 105 plus another 30 million cash when to sell off the properties on the islands. But no, the total is 800 million, 807,800,000 when you combine them all, because Deutsche Bank had to pay 75 million. JP Morgan had to pay another 75 million. It's different lawsuits. That was to the Virgin Islands. 290 was to Epstein's victims. You're talking about 250 girls just in that.
Wow.
Another 150 in Deutsche Bank.
What was the culpability of Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan? Why did they have to cough up all those millions?
Yeah, so they facilitated the revenue needed for him when they knew or should have known better, the judge thought, of what he was doing. He was paying, they were.
That's right, Tracy Weaver. He's not dead. He is not dead. There's no way he's dead. Okay. There's the minute missing a camera footage. The guards were asleep. Guards asleep, and an inmate dies. You're going to become an inmate. Okay. New York City is very correction officers are held to a very high standard, especially in New York City. Something like that happens, and that happens on your watch, and and the reason why it happened, you're asleep. You're becoming an inmate. Period. That is not, there's no non-negotiables with that. Clary Peace, Trump's an amazing man. Let me guess, you hate Biden, right? You hate Biden. But when Trump won the election, Biden was shaking Trump's hand and saying, good game. Good game. Okay? When he was pushing the witch's brew on everyone. Okay? Good game. It was a game to these people. A literal game, like they're playing basketball. Playing with your lives. And you say Trump is a good man. Wonderful man. Amazing man. Would you let Trump near your daughter? Would you let your daughter have a sleepover at Trump's house? Clary, would you let that happen? He's such a good man, right? I don't know why. What gets you people? He's a great. You make this sound like this is sports teams. Okay, this is not about sports teams. This is a uni party that's into child trafficking, and anybody who dares speak out about it, they end up dead. These people want to control your food supply. These people want to have a surveillance state over us. They're trying to get rid of the Constitution. They're trying to bring back segregation. I don't know what see what has to happen is the fact that something has to happen to you. That's what it is. Just like many of these MAGAs who've lost their farms, who've lost their jobs, because you didn't think it would happen to you because you're white. Because Trump, you know what Trump was trying to do. He's trying to make an ethno-white state. And you thought you were going to be a part of that. The things that your disgusting ancestors thought about daily, bringing back the good old times where women were getting the crap smacked out of them if the dinner was cold. Or the fact that you could kidnap a black person and no one would care. You wouldn't be prosecuted for harming them or eating them or making furniture out of their bones and skin or using their babies as alligator bait. Because you thought that was going to be your future. Well, no, it's not. This is all for the sake of the billionaires, pedophile billionaires. And you're too evil to see it because you know what Trump's is about. But when it affects you, that's when you want to change. That's when you want to say, oh, I didn't know. Yes, you did. You knew about Project 2025. No, I'm talking about the vision of what Republicans wanted. And the Democrats. Because the Democrats voted to keep Trump in power. They voted against impeaching Trump. They both work for the sides of white supremacy, not just the Democrats. They're working on food shortages. Okay. Well, I think with what's going on in Europe with the Sharia law, with that, what's going on in London, they're doing that to make it so bad that you're going to want, you really don't care what the solution is, even if it's a white nationalism. And then they're going to start removing every illegal, not just illegal immigration, but they're going to remove legal immigrants, people who have immigration status, became citizens of London, and they're going to just attack every non-white in London. So they're making it so bad with the Islamic immigration that when they present the solution of white supremacy in London, they'll be okay with it because they're letting so many bad things happen. It's called order out of chaos. They provide the problem and they also provide the solution. That's what's happening in London. Okay? That's what's going on. With all the grooming gangs and grape gangs that are going on in London and Sweden. Prin, both parties don't want you to have universal health care. All right? Because Israel gets $4 billion a year. Free health care, free education, free health care, free education, enhanced passports to travel to multiple countries. America is in $1 trillion in debt, fighting for universal health care. Okay? Can't get free education. But Israel's getting that.
Paying hush money, he was taking out, if you get like $9,999 out enough times, that's a red flag, even if it doesn't go over the $10,000 threshold. Sort of how they nailed Dennis Hassert. But it was more than that. I mean, J.P. Morgan was involved with white-collar crimes with Jeffrey Epstein anyway. It's why Jeffrey Epstein got released from Bear Stearns, was breaking regulations. He set up something called liquid funding and another Bear Stearns Ireland to try to get around regulations. And all they were doing is they were dumping assets onto a subsidiary and then getting the rating agencies to come look at without their toxic assets temporarily at the end of the month and then buy them back again. It's not a very clever Ponzi scheme.
But there's no question but that these banks, two of the largest banks in the world, JP Morgan Chase might be the biggest bank in the United States, were aware of what was going on.
Absolutely. And JP Morgan was involved in that Bear Stearns scandal too. They put up 1.2 billion in that. They absolutely knew. One of their executives, Jess Staley, was deeply involved, and we know because we have internal emails between him and Jeffrey talking about Disney princess.
Diabetics, when you try this baking soda trick,
He absolutely knew what Jeff was doing because he was part of it, and he's being sued by JP Morgan too.
Is there a client list of the males who patronized the islands or used his services to have these illicit sexual unions?
To quote Pam Bondi, I have that on my desk, but officially, no, there isn't. Why would you have such a thing? Why would you write down all your Johns in a notebook and like leave it in a locker or something? Of course, there's no client list, as in like somebody alphabetized and just wrote down who in organized crime would ever write down everybody they're involved in some malicious crime. But there's no list like that. But there is a list that you can make and that the FBI should have made. But what happened online was, I think it was Dick Bryant or somebody, they released some of the flight logs and the little black book, which was actually Maxwell's black book. And there's a lot of names on those, but that is not enough data to accuse somebody of rape. Just because they flew on a plane with somebody, that is a data point. It's not useless, but that's not enough. And being in the black book, that's just anybody they ever knew at all. And, many people they knew obviously didn't know what they were doing and were not involved with them in that. But you could make a client list by listening to the victims themselves, listening to Epstein's own employees, his pilots, his chauffeurs, his bodyguards, his chefs, and they have. And this is in part of the record, is part of the court record where these people have stated what they saw, and or at the time girls who were victims have said who they were trafficked to, and it's corroborated. And you also have in the financial crimes, his former partner at Tower Financial, Stephen Hoffenberg, when he was let out of jail, started blowing the whistle left and right, said he was Mossad, So that's how you get the list, is by listening to the women. They're still alive, a lot of them, and they'll tell you what happened to them and who they were trafficked to. And it wasn't just Jeffrey and Maxwell and Prince Andrew. But I find it hilarious to say there aren't any clients. They're like, but no, you have to admit that Prince Andrew and Ghislane Maxwell are. Ghislane Maxwell's in jail, and Prince Andrew had to pay out $16 million, and he's photographed with Virginia Roberts in Maxwell's house in the UK. Like, why? The thing is, like, why do these people even know all these teenage girls at all? Like, what else were you doing?
Right. Did Judge Loretta Preska, who had, I guess, one of the large civil cases, didn't she, a federal district court judge in Brooklyn, New York, order the publication of these lists of which you're speaking?
Yeah, but they're putting the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart. They don't know. They're just assuming it was a list. There never was a list. They had some flight logs and a black book. That's not a list. The way to compile the list would be to go and talk to all the victims and do like real detective work and find out, okay, can we corroborate this person's story? Because girls can lie too. But it turns out, I don't think all these people were only trafficked to Maxwell and Jeffrey. And these lawsuits have already been paid $807 million anyway. And so they know all these Jane Does, they will tell you, and some of them have. I don't know if you want to get into names or whatever, but these have already been said, like Virginia Roberts, rest in peace. But she told us who she was trafficked to.
Right.
And her story does pan out. She knew. You could ask them things like, okay, what did the bathroom look like? What was the decor? Like if they've been in that person's house or they've been in a hotel together, and it pans out. And
I'm going to play a montage for you. You have probably seen all of these clips, but I would like you to comment on them. This is a little bit more than a minute or so. Chris, cut number 9.
How is it that my father can be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light. I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right? It's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why, right?
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism, is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
I'm not ever going to let this story go because of what I heard from a source about Bill Clinton on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it go ever. Ever.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking...
Trump, you rode on the fact that you would reveal the list. You said to reporters that you would reveal the list, not just what happened to Martin Luther King, not just what happened to JFK, but you would reveal the list. You would release the list, and you have not done that. I knew you wouldn't do that. People with a brain knew you were not going to do that. Because you've lied on everything else. You lied about releasing your tax returns. You lied about locking up Hillary Clinton. You lied about wanting to lock up George Soros. And I got to blame the Trump supporters for being mad that he's not going to release the list when he has broken every other promise before that. I'm going to lock up Hillary Clinton. He gets the presidency. Oh, I don't want to do that. Her and her husband are together. I'm going to lock up George Soros. Oh, he's an old man and stuff. Right then and there, you should have burnt any type of Trump memorabilia you had. And that's when you should have been flipping tables, okay, demanding Trump's foot be put to the fire and ask what the hell is going on here. We voted for you to do this. And now you're giving us this. If you guys were smart and you had any self-respect, he would have never gotten a second presidency. Oh, Biden's doing this. Biden's doing that. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so Trump, are you going to reveal the list? And you would probably would have come together and had the best lawyers you could have gotten and say like, listen, we have lawyers here who don't like you. And that's really going to work in our favor. So if you refuse to meet our demands, we will send them after you, Trump. You don't reveal, don't get Hillary Clinton locked up this time, we'll send a lawyer. You don't come after George Soros, we will send the lawyers after you, Trump. That's if you had any self-respect and actually cared about America, cared about women and children. Because right then you would have had a backbone and say, all right, you ain't going to do it? Cool. We're not voting for you. Yeah, Biden's a crappy choice. But you're even worse since you lied the first time in the first presidency. Trump is right. You guys are poorly educated. You guys are losers. You guys are weaklings. As I said, there's a time when you guys were going to a trip to see Trump talk about being president again. Okay. And he paid for a trip. Okay. One way. All right. Yeah, here it is. Donald Trump followers left stranded in desert after Coca-Cola rally. Chaos. Okay, remember that? This was last year, actually, right? This was last year. Absolute chaos as Trump supporters left stranded after Coca-Cola rally hit by assassination scare. Okay? He left you guys there. And you still voted for him. He calls you suckers and losers. Some of you have veterans in your family, fallen. He called them losers. Okay. While thousands of supporters were bussed into Calhoun Ranch, which was situated about 5 miles away from where they parked their vehicles, people attending claimed the event organizers had neglected transport for the return journey. And instead of being shuttled away from the venue after Trump exited the stage at about 7 p.m., following a near 90-minute address, many attendees were left stranded in 93-degree heat, according to a video found video footage on social media. Apparently, the buses are no longer coming, said one attendee in the clip, taken more than 3 hours after the rally had concluded. There used to be like 20 buses when we were being brought here, but now there's only like 3 buses operating. He added, it's just chaos, absolute chaos. All of us stranded here. Everyone is stranded here. That's your president. Okay. Future president at the time. This happened last year. And you guys didn't see that there were red flags everywhere with this guy. Everywhere. He was showing you, he's giving you his backside to kiss more than one occasion. And you're mad that he won't reveal the Epstein files? Give me a break. Give me a break.
We have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. Are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
Let's go to the Attorney General. Did she fail to prosecute Epstein and others for crimes committed under her jurisdiction when she was the Attorney General of the state of Florida?
She did. Well, it's hard to know how much her arm was twisted. Everybody except for Donald Jr., I guess, in those clips, when they were asked, what's important to you? What did they say? Their relationship with Israel. That's all they care about. They probably looked at the list, found out it went back to Israel, and that was it. The list was gone. And the list was gone the day Netanyahu came to visit again. He said, get rid of it.
What is the connection to Israel? Was Epstein a Mossad asset?
1,000% he was. First off, Epstein did not create this compromise ring. He walked into a pre-existing nexus. They've been doing this. And if anybody's like,
you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of a woman who is constantly lied to by a man, or a man who's constantly lied to by a woman. They show their red flags. They say they're sorry. They say they'll do better. Just trust me this last time. You give them a chance, and they still show you who they really are. They still screw you over. Every 4 years, they lie to you. Trump lied to you. Okay. 4 years when coming up for president, right? Okay. Biden came in office after that and then lied to you again 4 years later. Just wanted to say that. Oh, sorry. Oh, damn. There we go. Okay, sorry. Okay. All right.
That is unbelievable.
Let's go to the Attorney General. Did she fail to prosecute Epstein and others for crimes committed under her jurisdiction when she was the Attorney General of the state of Florida?
She did. Well, it's hard to know how much her arm was twisted. Everybody except for Donald Jr., I guess, in those clips, when they were asked, what's important to you? What did they say? Their relationship with Israel. That's all they care about. They probably looked at the list.
I don't think you get it, Tracy Sewell. You're getting fascism either way, and Kamala Harris helped Trump get the election. Trump's talking about the economy. Kamala Harris is talking about gender reassignment surgery. The economy is in peril. She's talking about gender reassignment surgery. They both debated. Neither one of them could answer a yes or no question about ending the war in Ukraine. Okay? Kamala Harris didn't even have a primary. Trump was made to win that election. Elon Musk helped him win the election by using Skynet to manipulate the voting machines that made states that were supposed to turn blue, swing states, to turn red. Rockland County is now having an investigation into the elections. Okay. Yeah, it is a conspiracy. Presidents are not elected, they are selected. Either way, let's say should win, you're going to get fascism. All right. And that's what we have. We just have fascism coming from the right. That's what you don't get. Trump is not for America. He's for the billionaire class, and he's going to create an ethno-white state. That is the goal. That is the goal. Project 2025. And then there's Project Esther. Many of MAGA have admitted that, yeah, Project 2025 was the goal. Like the goofies that they are, only to find out that many of them are losing their jobs, losing their medical insurance, and are going to be on the street. Some of them may die because they depend on the medical health insurance, Medicaid. They depend on that, but they don't care. They think Trump is saving America, and they'll have that nice dream of owning black people again. Many of them won't even live to even see that, if that is to become a reality, because many of them will be dead because they can't afford their insulin. They can't afford to eat. Make America great again. Make America great again. But, you know, Republican voters are still poor. Red states are still poor. It's the blue states holding up the red states. They don't even want the red states to have education. Because if they do, that means they'll be more educated, and they will not vote because of whiteness. They will vote because of policies. What policies help my family and my business as a small business owner? Or as a farmer? That's why they keep you poor. That's why some of these red states have a poor literacy rate. Arkansas, they could have gotten help, but because the person that was black that was offering them help, they didn't want it. Single motherhood up the roof in Arkansas. White single mothers. Through the roof. They got the nerve to be racist. But that's how they work. They make you think because you're white, but you're poor, you're better than the poor minority. Both poor, but because you're born with a skin color, oh, you're better than the blacks. Racism is expensive.
Found out it went back to Israel, and that was it. The list was gone. And the list was gone the day Netanyahu came to visit again. He said, get rid of it.
What is
They
the
did.
connection to Israel? Was Epstein a Mossad asset?
1,000% he was. Like, first off, Epstein did.
Tone below. Nobody cares about skin color. Is that why we still have sundown towns, you moron? Why do we have sundown towns? Why do we still have segregated churches if nobody cares about skin color? Yeah, right. Trump is right. You are the poorly educated.
Not create this compromise ring. He walked into a pre-existing nexus. They've been doing this. And if anybody's like, oh, our greatest ally. Would Israel really run an operation that included child rape? Israel shoots children. Israel shoots people in line begging for food. And Israel is the go-to.
There are rabbis that when they are caught in abusing kids, where do they go to? They run to Israel. You have Tel Aviv, that's just basically Sodom and Gomorrah 3.0. Okay. Israel is extremely racist over there. Okay. They treat, if you're not a white Jew, you're in trouble in Israel. Okay. The Israeli government created Hamas. That's what they don't tell you. Benjamin Netanyahu wants to support Hamas to have a boogeyman, okay, to keep the war going. He wants to destroy Palestinians. He wants to destroy the people of Gaza. It's gotten so bad that there are some Israeli governments that are Israeli groups that are calling it a genocide now. All right. Here's another lie, another delusional person right here. Hold on a minute. Oh boy. Anthony Peters, being in the military, skin color never mattered. Those who bleed with me were my brothers. That's because you knew that your life was on the line, sir, and skin color was on the back seat. But sir, the military has a history of segregation. Okay, blacks were segregated from whites, okay, in the military, and when they came back home, they were still mistreated. Okay, couldn't get GI bills, couldn't get benefits, and still called the N-word and hung from trees in their military uniform, sir. So Anthony Peters, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You don't know the history of the military when it came to segregation. And there's still instances of hate crimes in the military. So you really don't know what you're talking about, sir, at all.
Haven for pedophile refugees. They all know if you get caught, you can flee to Israel and get away with it.
What did I just say? What did I just say about those rabbis? I just said it. You can look this information up. It's so bad that the Israeli council is like, listen, we can't be harboring these people anymore. We cannot be harboring child abusers. And for you Christians out there, like, God bless Israel. God bless Israel. Israel is spitting on Christians, kicking them, little children, kicking them. Zionism is deep in Israel, and they don't like you. Kissing up to, they don't respect you. Like I said, they're getting paid billions in American taxpayer dollars, living high off the hog, living for things that in America we could only dream to have. Free healthcare, free education. There's no excuse, we can't have free healthcare, but our tax dollars are paying for Israel to have free healthcare and free education and have enhanced passports to go to multiple countries. You have no money for the poor, but you got money to help Israel bomb Palestinians. No money in America, but you got money to go and fight a war in Ukraine. When we could just hand Ukraine over to Russia. It's a neo-Nazi nation. I thought we were against fascism.
In 2000, the vice consul for Israel was in Brazil. His name's Ari Shur. And he got caught in a pedophile ring with little kids, like 8, 9 years old. This guy.
When I'm in the back seat, when you're fighting a war, skin color doesn't matter. You're both trying to survive. That's what I mean. What's in the back seat of your mind. Like, that doesn't matter when you're in the foxhole. You're trying to survive and, stay out of the line of fire from the enemy. That's what I mean, Aaron Lewis.
George Steinberg was a Hebrew language teacher. He already's in jail, so we can say all this. Well, what happened was a 17-year-old saw herself nude that George had posted on the internet. Like, how many pictures do you have to put out there before one of the girls sees themselves? And that's what brought him down, and they raided his property, and they found just trinkets of photos and CDs and all. This is CDs. That's how long ago that was.
But back to Epstein, Ryan. What was he entrapping people for? Israel's political purposes? Was he a paid Mossad agent? Was he passing small talk that he had with whomever? You mentioned Bill Clinton, Bill Richardson, who's now dead. Was he passing that information on to his Israeli superiors?
Israel has everything he had. It wasn't just, they were supposed to be spying on U.S. science and tech and stealing trade secrets, and they did. The Compromat was part of that operation, but Epstein was a money launderer. But it wasn't like he was good at making genius scams. He would just use blackmail on tax collectors and legislators and get the rules changed. That was his magic power, which he didn't know because he did it for himself.
What was Attorney General Bondi referring to when she told Fox News the list was on her desk?
I don't think she had looked at it. I think the intel, they all assumed there was a list because online, like in the Twitter sphere, everyone talks about the list. I mean, some of these people talk about tunnels and a bunch of ridiculous stuff. There never was a list. The only list is the list I made. There's no real list. I mean, Maxwell would have a lot of it. And a lot of people in that black book are guilty, but a lot of people are not. You can only make the list by going to the victims. So she said it's there for review. So apparently they hadn't reviewed it. I don't know why why even bring it up again if you're going to rug pull like this? Because that thing was dead under the Biden administration. This all happened in Trump's first term. And his son made a mistake when he said nobody's been arrested. 4 people were arrested. 3 of them are dead. Jean-Luc Brunel was arrested, and he apparently killed himself all by himself in a jail.
All right, let me go keep moving a bit. Sheesh, man. Sheesh.
Donald Trump's dark past continues to surface, and we here at the Midas Touch Network have this through the next round. Here are some of the photos we've been able to identify. You can see Donald Trump right there looking at these girls who he made wear the bathing suits and kind of walk in front of him. And again, some of these girls as young as 14. Here's a photo of what the actual competition looked like from the 1991 look of the year. This was from the Guardian's report on it. Let me read for you what they said, what happened the night before the event. Then I'm going to show you some of the video that we've been able to locate at the Midas Touch Network. So this was a photo from the Guardian article, a still from a pre.
I'm going to just try to move on here because I'm trying not to get dinged hard. Okay. Let's go right here. All right. Yep. Here we are. Yep. Here we are. Here we are.
Ever since the Epstein case roared back into the headlines, Bill Gates has been unusually quiet, keeping his head down while the world scrambles to catch up on what we've been reporting for years. Epstein's network wasn't just about trafficking, it was about eugenics.
Here we go.
Depopulation and the enslavement of the human race. Last week, Ghislane Maxwell broke her silence from prison. She told her she was burnt by the elite who promised her a sweetheart deal. She also said she remembers every name on the client list, and now she wants to testify before Congress. Then came the real bombshell, Bill Gates and the Butterfly Trust. Barely known until now, this shadowy group, forced to settle with victims, was heavily funded by Bill Gates. According to Maxwell, it was the beating heart of the Epstein and Gates' eugenics project. A covert breeding operation to clone babies born into slavery and seed the earth with elite DNA. Sick? Absolutely. But it gets worse. This wasn't fringe science. This was industrial-scale eugenics. And the files Epstein left behind, his so-called insurance...
I don't put it past this being real because they have done cloning. Okay?
allegedly show children used as raw material for experiments to make Dr. Joseph Mengele look restrained. The scale is massive. The evidence is coming. And Gates, he's scrambling because he knows what's in those files. Before we dive in, a quick word about
Gates and Epstein, a connection between their foundation and
arms of the same machine. For years, the pieces didn't quite fit. Epstein, transhumanism, the WEF, secret experiments, missing children. It all felt too dark, too vast, and too insane to be real. But now the missing link has fallen into place. And his name is Bill Gates. The money, the research, the agenda, it all points back to him. Gates wasn't just funding global health, he was bankrolling the very foundation of Epstein's transhumanist obsession. And at the heart of this obsession, thousands of cloned babies, born without parents' birth certificates, and completely outside the protection of the law. And now, for the first time, we have the evidence to prove it.
Shocking new report on the connection between Microsoft founder Bill Gates and the late Jeffrey Epstein. In connection with Epstein and MIT Media Lab outlines numerous meetings between Gates and Epstein, a connection between their foundation and JP Morgan to set up a charitable fund that would financially benefit Epstein.
Flight log. Who's ignoring that Trump is protecting these weirdos? It's not me, so keep it going.
Revealed that Gates had flown on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet. An email surfaced showing disgraced MIT Media Lab director Joy Ito. He had helped cover up Jeffrey Epstein's identity as an anonymous donor to the lab, informing his staff that a $2 million donation to the lab in 2014 was a gift from Bill Gates, directed by Jeffrey Epstein. Gates tried to downplay the relationship. Didn't know it was Epstein's plane. I didn't have any business relationship or friendship with Epstein. Gates had in fact met with Epstein on multiple occasions, even going so far as to discuss the creation of a multi-billion-dollar charitable fund with seed money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and JP Morgan Chase. His lifestyle is very different and kind of intriguing, although it would not work for me. Epstein's will even named Boris Nikolic, a Harvard-trained immunologist who served as the chief scientific advisor to both Microsoft and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and who appears in the sole publicly known photo of Epstein and Gates.
Epstein wanted to use the ranch for controlled breeding, using his DNA to improve humanity. Epstein surrounded himself with leading scientists and would tell them he wanted to have 20 women impregnated at a time on the ranch.
Hoped to seed the human race with his DNA, put a modern gloss on a very old idea. Mr. Epstein's vision reflected his long-standing fascination with what has become known as transhumanism, the science of improving the human population through technologies like genetic engineering and artificial intelligence. Critics have likened transhumanism to a modern-day version of eugenics, the discredited field of improving the human race through controlled breeding. Epstein's interest in genetics led him to sponsor a number of scientists working in the field, including George Church, a Harvard geneticist whose lab received funding from Epstein's foundation. Church also acted as scientific advisor to Editas Medicine, a startup seeking to use the genome editing tool CRISPR-Cas9 to eliminate diseases by deleting the parts of a genetic code responsible for the illness. The company announced it had raised $120 million from a group led by Epstein's appointed backup executor, Dr. Boris Nikolic. That group of investors included Bill Gates.
Well, he's dead, so... This isn't speculation anymore. The truth is this. The global elite have been playing gods for decades, drunk on the power to create and destroy life at will, cloning babies, harvesting adrenochrome, torturing and killing in rituals hidden behind layers of wealth, science, and philanthropy. They believed they were untouchable, but now the evidence is surfacing. The files are leaking, and the survivors like Juliet Bryant are bravely speaking out.
Phenomenal woman. She spent almost 2 years with Epstein and Maxwell. So she was out of South Africa, and she ended up getting spotted as a model when she was a teenager. And then as she's submitting the work and stuff, falls into the clutches of Epstein and Maxwell.
Oh, yeah. Fun fact. Puffy Combs wrote a book called The Adrenochrome Witch, and he was exposing celebrities who were also using why celebrities were using adrenochrome, especially the female actresses.
Who took her to the States, took her to the island. The evil deeds began.
How's it affected her life now?
terribly. She's traumatized. She's living in a secure compound with attack dogs. They were jumping around in the back while I was interviewing her. But she was taken to places like trips, and she was on the Lolita Express with Kevin Spacey, with Bill Clinton, and all these huge names. And she was saying that, you know, when Bill Clinton would come out of a certain room, there was a smell of death, like corpses and cleaning chemicals attached to him.
The soft, innocent name, the Butterfly Trust, is the key to unlocking what was really happening behind closed doors. The godlike powers the elite were playing with, the twisted game they were running on humanity, and their endgame, a controlled, engineered world with mass depopulation at its core. This week, Representative Tim Burchett went on national TV and said it plain. Follow the money when it comes to Epstein.
I want to know the money trail. I want to know who employed, was Epstein a foreign agent? Who was who are his benefactors?
We couldn't agree more. After the break,
There's a lot of things that are being said about Trump, especially when it comes to Trump's son Barron. That Barron's not his son, and it's really Kevin Trudeau's son. You know, you look at the face and you see the fact Barron is extremely taller than Trump. There's a lot of stuff, and you know, Ivanka cheating on Jared. I don't know about the cheating allegations, you know, but there's a lot that we don't know. A lot.
we traced the
very big gay restaurant in the front. It was like, you know,
press. And let's be clear, everyone in the industry knew. In Los Angeles, it was an open secret. Whispers at parties, rumors on sets. People knew what was happening, and they looked the other way.
Early on, I was propositioned to my first lunch with my new bosses at Warner Brothers. They took me to a restaurant in West Hollywood, very gay restaurant, and there was Kevin Spacey. And this was what I experienced: Kevin Spacey in a booth across from us with what looked like a 14 or 15-year-old kid in his lap, and I was just naive, fresh off the boat from Texas, and I was like, "Is this a gay restaurant, guys? You know, because it seems like that's a child over there in Kaiser Sose's lap."
Rat on your pop, and Kaiser Sose will. And no one ever really believes.
I didn't know Kevin Spacey's name at that point, and yeah.
Like, where are we?
Yeah, I mean,
like, what's happening here?
Yeah, and he was kissing on his neck. It was disgusting. I mean, it was just, it made me sick. And that's where, and then later I was propositioned for a big role on a TV show that would change my life. And I could do movies after that. And I made it to the final cut, and it was between me and the guy that got it. And they said, "We just want to F you. And you will never be in want." It was like,
I can't, what?
In Kaiser Sose's lap.
Rat on your pop, and Kaiser Sose will get you. And no one ever really believes.
I didn't know Kevin Spacey's name at that point. And Kaiser Sose. Yeah.
Like, where are we?
Yeah, I mean,
happening here?
Yeah, and he was kissing on his neck. Proposition for, and I could do movies after that. I made it to the final cut, and it was between me and the guy that got it, and he said, "We just want to F you, and you will never be in want." It was like, you know, it was Jesus in the desert being, you know, propositioned. And
see, you have a lot of people, right? You'll have a lot of people that are money hungry and will say, "Yeah, I would have taken the deal." This is where integrity comes in, okay? This is where it comes in because of the fact, if you do that for the rest of your life, every car you buy, every purchase you have to understand this was all because you bent over and you let somebody plow in your mouth. This is why when they come up with that foolishness, you walk away as a man, as a woman with integrity and backbone.
You can do movies, you can do
Greatest trick the devil ever pulled.
Oh, second.
Was convincing the world he didn't exist.
But behind closed doors, it was far worse than anybody imagined. Gates and Epstein weren't just dabbling in science. They were leading the charge in one of the most dangerous experiments in human history, human cloning. According to multiple sources, including Maxwell herself, they were directly involved in the first successful cloning of a human being in a private...
Diabetics.
Hold
when
on
you
one
try this
second.
baking soda trick twice a day.
raised in secrecy, used for training, experimentation, and worse. Some were harvested for adrenochrome, others were broken, and all of them were hidden until now.
I'm your insurance policy.
Juliet Bryant is one of the last Epstein survivors still breathing, and what she's revealing now, they do not want getting out.
My name is Juliet Bryant. I was kidnapped by Jeffrey Epstein from Africa. I was supposed to be a model for Victoria's Secret in New York. Instead, I was kidnapped to the island. A lot of frightening things happened here. They don't want the victim speaking out to the media.
She wasn't just trafficked. She was moved from Epstein's island to his private lab in New Mexico. There, she says she woke up paralyzed, naked, on a steel table.
Sorry, guys, hold on.
Through, thousands of clone children have been created, raised in secrecy, used for trafficking, experimentation, and worse.
And it was
in one of the most dangerous experiments in human history, human cloning. According to multiple sources, including Maxwell herself, they were directly involved in the first successful cloning of a human being in a private lab in the Bahamas back in 2002. And it didn't stop there. Maxwell now admits, since that breakthrough, thousands of clone children have been created, raised in secrecy, used for trafficking, experimentation, and worse. Some were harvested for adrenochrome, others were broken, and all of them were hidden until now.
I'm your insurance policy.
Juliet Bryant.
Remember that movie, The Island? Okay. With I think Evan McGregor. You ever see that movie? Watch that movie. Okay. It's about cloning.
Is one of the last Epstein survivors still breathing, and what she's revealing now, they do not want getting out.
My name is Juliet Bryant. I was kidnapped by Jeffrey Epstein from Africa. I was supposed to be a model for Victoria's Secret in New York. Instead, I was kidnapped to the island. A lot of frightening things happened there. They don't want the victim speaking out to the media.
She wasn't just trafficked. She was moved from Epstein's island to his private lab in New Mexico. There, she says she woke up paralyzed, naked, on a steel table, hazmat suits around her, no memory, just fear. And here's what's f***ed. At that exact time, on an island in the Bahamas, a company called Clonaid claimed they successfully cloned the first human baby. Her name, Eve. It's not a theory. That happened. December 2002. So while Juliet was being trafficked, Epstein was deep in cloning, transhumanism, and eugenics. This wasn't just sex crimes. This was a scientific black site run by a monster. She says he shapeshifted in front of her.
Epstein shapeshifted in me. It's very hard to understand if you haven't seen it, but I saw it. It was like a weird hologram, like big black eyes.
His form flickered like a hologram. Horns grew from his head. His eyes turned pitch black. Huge, alien, soulless. She didn't see a man. She saw something reptilian.
I think they were taking our eggs. They had the butterfly trust. The human hips are shaped like a butterfly. So if they were taking our eggs, it would make sense. It connects the dots of the butterfly trust.
And the other survivors? Most of them are dead, like Virginia, Carolyn, and Juliet. She's still here. She's still warning us.
I don't hear anything from Charlie Kirk. So let's get into the
supporting a country that has neo-Nazis, but we resolve this.
So I want you to let you guys hear what they have to say about Ukraine.
So Kevin McCarthy's friend, and that's who this man is. He supported Kevin through all the scandals, including the ones which involved Kevin cheating on his wife. And this man has supported him.
Busted. Jeffrey Epstein met with head of CIA and blackmail Mossad operation. Just keep it.
Specifically, he's saying, Lauren, that the Ukrainians will try to invade Crimea. And if they succeed, then we keep supporting them. If they fail, we pull support. But again, they're saying all this from Israel. They're saying all this while we're having this discussion nationally about where our money's going. And on top of that, all I keep seeing are all these crossovers. I mean, I've shown you this. I was showing you the beheaded Israeli soldiers.
Do you remember this this past week when DeSantis went over to Israel to sign legislation that literally inhibited our First Amendment rights? That's the thing. I'm starting to think that maybe all the big decisions in the United States of America are made in Israel.
I think you're correct. I think that the facts in front of us show this. We're supporting a country that has neo-Nazis, but we are silencing, censoring, debanking, and taking the rights away from people.
What I say about Ukraine, it's a nation of neo-Nazis, yet we're supporting them. Trump supported them, and so did Biden. Y'all remember what it was like in New York? A bunch of Ukrainian flags shouting, Azov, Azov. Hold up, these are Nazis. And do you remember when AOC had a town hall meeting and the Democrat supporters, her supporters, just flipped on her and say, why are we supporting neo-Nazis? And she was like, oh, you guys are rude. All right. So fascism isn't just coming from, the right. It's also coming from the left. Same thing with pedophilia.
That we call neo-Nazis here.
Yes.
Right? And then on top of that, we're can't afford to protect our waterways for East Palestine.
Our infrastructure is
crumbling. We somehow found $100 billion to give to another country. We're talking about going to war with Iran. And then Israel, the continued aid there.
Yeah, Joe Jackson. Yeah, you remember when they brought an actual German soldier into Canada's part? Yes, I remember that. Yes, I remember that. Okay. Oh, thank you for the sub, man. Thank you for the sub. Yeah, I mean, people are just so blind. And this is why you have to look on alternative media sites. You cannot trust mainstream media anymore. Okay? You cannot. They both lie to you, especially when it came to the situation with the witch's brew, okay, with the Joe Biden situation with the witch's brew, and you couldn't get two different opinions. It was this way or no way. And it's like a lot of people just didn't want to listen, okay? So I would say that the left has its own MAGA, okay? Like I said, when you support either party, you're supporting their power. That's why it's really like this is what happens. And if you dare criticize either one, you will face backlash. You cannot have a brain if you're on either side. You cannot be in the middle and have a brain. That is a cardinal sin when it comes to politics. You must be all the way. Because the ones that are all the way, those are the ones that make money for either party. If you're a Republican, you got to be a diehard one. That's how you make money. on either side. Because that's the goal, is money. If you're a person that's in the middle and want to be rational, then you're the enemy. You're not fun anymore.
Support.
I can't get over the fact, okay, sorry to change the subject real quick, but I just can't get over the fact, I mean, DeSantis is about to announce that he's running for president, but he felt like he had to go to Israel and sign a blood contract in order to get their blessing. There's something very wrong with this country when we have to solicit support from another country in order to get things done here. We have to get blessings from one place, and it, like decisions being made for Ukraine to keep a war going where thousands and hundreds of thousands of people are dying. They have to go get the blessing in Israel. And it's very bizarre to me. I think there's something very wrong there. And this isn't the way the country should be. I wish our politicians and our elected officials loved America as much as they loved Israel.
Well, that's the problem. It will never be that way. It's a lie. We are just the United States of Israel. This is a bigger version of Israel. That's it. That's it. Oh, fun fact. Did you know that there's actually, I would say, two, like the fact of there's another Israel, and it's between Russia and it's twice the size of Israel. Israel can't expand. Wonder why it's never talked about. You can look it up.
And it's not like an anti-Semitic remark or anything like that. This is like, imagine if I switched it out with China. What if they were all going to China to make these decisions, to sign legislation? This is a serious issue, and it seems like nobody wants to talk about it.
Well, it depends with the alternative media. You have to think for yourself, okay? And you have to, you can't just trust them with your whole heart. You know, you have to understand these are human beings, and you have to use your common sense and do your own homework, because money is the game, and some of them will fold for money. And when you do have some racist alternative media sites that will be like, well, you know, they will say, oh, it's the Zionists, it's the Zionists, it's the Zionists, and, you know, we have to fight for white purity. So you're fighting racist Zionists to uphold racism? Yeah, I don't take you seriously. Just an example right there.
Or you get slandered, you get called names, you called anti-Semitic. But you know what? If it was any other country, this wouldn't be acceptable.
You know, it's absolutely insane. The only two explanations I can come up with is one, the money. And I'm talking about the
We're
Jewish
sending
donors.
the money. They're not giving us money.
Well, I'm talking about like the Jewish donors who refused to move back to Israel, right? So that must have some sway, but then you're right, it doesn't exactly explain this. The only thing that nearly fully explains this is that each and every one of these politicians, that they're blackmailed. That Israel has a dossier on each and every one of them. Steny Hoyer. Who knows what Steny Hoyer was doing as a kid or a teenager or to kids? Who knows what Kevin McCarthy's been doing to people that aren't his wife? We've heard these things. I keep saying it because, I mean, that's the thing is that, you know, he doesn't ever come at us for that because he knows what he's done. He's at least hit on a whole bunch of freshman congresswomen. And again, congressmen have told us that he is a dog, all right, a dog, as are many of these congressmen we send to the House of Representatives.
And if they aren't, they become them.
Yes, and so I have to think about this. Okay, we keep forgetting about this, and because society wants us to forget about it, the people in control of society especially wants us to forget about this. There was an international child sex trafficking ring that blew up, all right? And it was the Jeffrey Epstein ring. And then people are getting like tired of hearing about it. I don't know why. It's like the proof of everything that people are alleging here. Like, remember Madison Cawthorn? That kind of went out the window, right?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he blew open the fact that they're having orgies, drugs, and blackmail in
They
U.S.
leaked
Congress.
a video of him.
Yeah, no, they made sure he didn't return to
That's
Congress.
right. They got him
punished
out of Congress, and they put that video out there of him, getting a little suspect with some of his friends in a hotel room. Again, the point of this is that if they did it to Madison Cawthorn, then they probably have done it to many people. And the one of the email is important. Why I bring up the blackmail?
I think it's blackmail.
Yeah, I think blackmail makes sense. And look, this past week we had another revelation with Jeffrey Epstein. So his calendar was released. All right, in the calendar, Jeffrey Epstein once again is shown meeting with the most elite politicians, professors, thinkers of the day. Noam Chomsky was among those who visited Jeffrey Epstein, was in jail. Okay.
And Noam Chomsky, he had a very, very, very interesting attitude when asked about it. Like, it's none of your business.
And he said that when Noam Chomsky was asked, by the way, he's like, it's none of your business why I'm visiting a sex pedophile.
See what I said? See what I said?
Yes, it is, sir. Okay. Yes, it bloody well is. And I have to think about this. Jeffrey Epstein, for a long time, has been alleged to be tied to Mossad. Ghislane Maxwell did. He used to make jokes about how she flew helicopters, drove submarines. She could do a whole bunch of things because Mossad taught her and taught her daddy, who might have killed her. Killed her dad, by the way, Mossad. But here's the point. Jeffrey Epstein and his victims, they didn't just go away. If he was blackmailing people, who currently owns the blackmail? Okay? Jeffrey Epstein, up until very recently, was still meeting with the top members of society, include people like Elon Musk or Mohammed bin Salman. Okay? Steve Bannon also met with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay? That's how deep these connections go. But why it's relevant today? The subject of Jeffrey Epstein's role in society carries on through technology. Well, people don't know, for example, in Israel, the former prime minister and the former head of Mossad, Ehud Barak, actually had a technology collaboration project with Jeffrey Epstein. 2015, it's late 2015, they worked on a project called Carbine. And this project involved facial recognition. It was part of a lot of the technology boom in Tel Aviv, the gay capital of the world, but also their Silicon Valley. And Jeffrey Epstein was really obsessed with technology. He met with heads at MIT. He also met with Bill Gates through this initiative. Now, why this relates to what's happening in Ukraine is a lot of illicit technology has flowed into Ukraine. One of the most disgusting things I've seen so far to date, and another reason why you should be calling your congressman today to demand we end the funding, is you are funding the doxing of widows. You are funding Ukrainian soldiers calling the relatives, sometimes the wives or girlfriends, the mothers of dead Russian soldiers, and they are taunting them, harassing, making fun of them. The worst part is they figure out how to call them, figure out their identity of a dead Russian soldier using U.S.-built facial recognition technology.
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're taking pictures of the dead soldiers, taking videos of the dead soldiers, and sending it to their family members back in Russia. Check this out.
Алло. Слава Украине. Слава Украине. Илюшин, смотри. Видишь, Илюшин.
This is what they don't tell you about Ukrainian soldiers, how cruel they could be. Okay? This is who they are. I mean, there's even video of Ukrainian soldiers bullying a soldier with Down syndrome. Down syndrome. But that's how desperate they were. Now they're just rounding up. They just bust into your house and take your 18-year-old son. Okay? And if you dare try to stop them, they will shoot you dead. Okay? That's how they get down.
Слава Украине. Илюши больше нет. Он заболел и умер. Все. Нет, Илюша. Он заблудился. Это была первая его ошибка.
Folks, you're paying for these people to loaf around and essentially troll on the tax dollars' dime. Okay, these are monsters.
All of this is paid on taxpayers' dime. All of it. And I can't tell you what they would do to other, their own people. Tie them up on telephone poles with duct tape, pull their pants down and spank their butts. Humiliation. Because they think that they are collaborating with the Russians.
Individuals. If the Russians were doing this to Americans, this would be condemned. Wholesale would be condemned. But as I was saying, that the use of U.S. technology, the kind of thing that Jeffrey Epstein was developing with Ehud Barak, that's what's being used right now in Ukraine. It's almost as if Ukraine is a testing ground for both getting away with laundering money, And we know, again, the CIA.
Election fraud.
Election fraud was doing that. You know, the CIA has been laundering tons of money and work through Ukraine. Now we also know technology is being tested like this. How much has the U.S. deep state advanced facial recognition technology through the war? I mean, it's tenfold. And I think about the argument they always give for it as well.
Hold on a second.
Done to make us safer, right? It makes it so we can be
Patriot Act, just for
Patriot
safer.
for us. And then I look at the application of what happens when this stuff comes home. It's not that it stops people from attacking us. Actually, to the contrary. I read the craziest story this week out of Boston. The same kind of technology was used at home in a drill involving the U.S. Army and the FBI. And what they did, Lauren, they're doing like an interrogation drill, getting ready for deployment to Ukraine and another war zone for the United States. They ended up setting up a drill in a hotel. They went into the wrong room, a room where...
Yeah, that's what they did. They teased a Ukrainian soldier with Down syndrome. Fellow Ukrainian soldiers were teasing another soldier with Down syndrome. This is Ukraine. This is what they do. Also, the fact of when they get supplies, donations, Ukrainian officials would keep that for themselves and sell it on the black market. That donation is supposed to go to the soldiers, medicine, and you put it on the black market. This is the culture. They don't tell you the culture of the Ukrainians are very cutthroat. Look on the alternative media. You will see videos. You will see people talking. They don't care. They have a very cold way of treating each other. Okay? Ukraine dictatorship. Zelensky runs it like a dictatorship. Journalists are kidnapped, sometimes deleted. Okay? Because they're printing the truth of what goes on in Ukraine. Churches are closed down. All right? You have a red line in Ukraine. That's exactly what's going to happen in America in a couple of years. People are poor. Some parts are poor. And it's a bread line that they have. Literal bread line. You could go on Telegram and you'll see everything. You see everything what they've been doing. And to their own people.
An airline pilot was basically sleeping. He was just recovering from working. They thought he was part of the drill and that he was the designated torture victim. And he's like walking away with laundering money. And we know, again, the CIA.
Election fraud.
Election fraud was doing that. You know, the CIA has been laundering tons of money and work through Ukraine. Now we also know technology is being tested like this. How much has the U.S. deep state advanced facial recognition technology through the war? I mean, it's tenfold. And I think about the argument they always give to us, Lord, as well. All these things are being done to make our lives easier, make us safer, right? And it makes it so we can be
Patriot Act, just for safer, yeah.
Just for us. And then I look at the application of what happens when this stuff comes home. It's not that it stops people from attacking us. Actually, to the contrary. I read the craziest story this week out of Boston. The same kind of technology was used at home in a drill involving the U.S. Army and the FBI. And what they did, Lauren, they're doing like an interrogation drill, getting ready for deployment to Ukraine and another war zone for the United States. They ended up setting up a drill in a hotel. They went into the wrong room, a room where an airline pilot was basically sleeping. He was just recovering from working. They thought he was part of the drill and that he was the designated torture victim. And he's like, what are you doing in my room? They said, we're here for the drill. We're going to interrogate you. And he's like, what are you doing? They proceeded to basically waterboard and beat him. They did all kinds of terrible things.
Wait. What?
God, no.
So there was
There was
airline
an airline pilot in Boston. Let's see. So tired. I'm this guy.
I'm sorry not to laugh, but gosh, man. This is something that happens out of like Police Academy, the comedy movie. Oh, man.
Chill in Boston.
What,
he heads to the hotel, checks in. He's like, wow, the city's great. I got a great view. He puts the blinds in, goes to sleep. Open up! Whoa, what's happening? I'm an airline pilot. I get paid lots of money. I'm kind of a professional. He goes to the door. Ugh, get on the bed.
I don't need the dramatics.
Well, okay, but it is kind of dramatic.
So the FBI raided an airline pilot in his
And
hotel.
the FBI and the U.S. Army
Okay.
on U.S. soil raided a hotel room of an airline pilot.
What was their reasoning?
They thought he was part of their drill. They thought he was the hired actor or part of their unit to basically pretend be tortured, but it wasn't really pretend. They were going to beat somebody. They accidentally beat the crap out of this pilot.
How come nobody's hearing about this? This is a very big deal.
It's a huge deal. I'm reading this story and I'm saying this is everything wrong with the Patriot Act. You know the worst part? After they figured, it took them a little bit over an hour and a bit to figure out that this guy was, when he was saying, I'm not part of your drill, why are you hurting me? Why are you doing this to me? It took him that long to say, oh, wait a minute, maybe he isn't part of the drill. And then they told him, you can never tell anyone what we did to you. Or else.
Oh, wow.
And you know what? They did succeed at keeping it quiet because we're only hearing about this now. All right, this is insane. Okay, here's a news report. Just to show you this is not made up. It's not dramatized.
We begin with breaking news that the WBZI team reported first on CBS News Boston. FBI agents barging into the wrong room at the Revere Hotel in Boston during what it says was a training exercise. An unsuspecting airline pilot was inside that room and was handcuffed and questioned before agents finally realized the mistake.
WBZ Chief Investigator Cheryl Fiandaca broke this story that you saw first here on WBZ and has the latest on this major mix-up.
Ghislane by the Revere Hotel, 2 Delta pilots had people claiming to be FBI agents barge into their room and handcuff them to the bathroom.
It played out like a scene out of a movie. FBI agents working with the Department of Defense barged into a room on the 15th floor of the Revere Hotel on Stewart Street in Boston. The FBI says it happened just before midnight on Wednesday. Agents banged on the door to room 1505. Inside was a sleeping Delta Airlines pilot who was a guest at the hotel. He opened the door, and sources say agents barged, handcuffed, and interrogated the pilot for more than 45 minutes. Him in the shower. Nearly an hour later, sources say they realized their mistake, cuffs off, and released him. The FBI says agents were conducting a training operation and a mock interrogation to simulate what a Department of Defense employee deployed overseas could encounter. The pilot notified hotel security, who called Boston police. The I-team obtained the Boston police report that shows responding officers wearing body cameras were told law enforcement agents were in fact training in the building.
Could you send me EMS?
EMS was called to evaluate the pilot, who refused treatment. The I-team spoke to that pilot by phone, who told us he couldn't talk about what happened. We reached out to the FBI, who told us in a statement, based on inaccurate information, they were mistakenly sent to the wrong room and detained an individual, not the intended role player. Thankfully, nobody was injured. And there are still a lot of questions involving this incident, including why were federal agents conducting training exercises at a hotel filled with guests who had no idea what was happening? And did the hotel know about the operation at all? The FBI says it's reviewing the incident with the Department of Defense. Lisa, David?
All right, Cheryl, great.
It's sad what goes on in our government. It really is. The crap that goes on. It really is. The nonsense, the utter nonsense that shouldn't be going on, but does.
Okay. I think the cognitive dissonance going on with Trump, that he's actually a good guy and gives a shit about America, is mind-blowing to me. So today I want to get into the dark side of the Trumps and open people's minds to really think about who the Trump family really is. So let's start.
Gosh, I wonder how many people already got their feelings hurt.
So many. And okay, let's get into Trump's dad, Fred Trump. So the Trump family are descendants of the Trump family, DRU. MP of Bavaria, Germany. Now, his father, Fred, was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And when he was young, he was living in Queens, New York. And I have recovered 3 newspaper articles that cited Fred Trump, who was arrested
People want to say Trump's not racist. Here it is.
for disorderly conduct at Klan rallies. Okay. Donald Trump has lied and claimed that this never happened, but it did in fact happen. And his father was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Another thing I found strange about Fred Trump is that he was always invited to the Al Smith charity dinners, which the presidents would host in Washington, D.C. Now, when Trump spoke at the Al Smith charity dinner, he said during his speech that he had been attending the Al Smith charity dinner since he was a child with his father. Now, if Fred Trump was just a normal guy who built buildings in New Jersey, why on earth was he invited to the Al Smith charity dinner if he was a nobody? So I find that to be very odd.
Real quick, what is that charity dinner? I'm not totally fluent. I'm not hip with that.
So the Al Smith charity dinner, it's basically for the American elite to get together. It's a donation. It's people speak. It's basically just the who's who of American politics.
Like Baby Bilderberg, just U.S., I guess.
Yeah, it's American Illuminati. It's the Columbian Order. It's Skull and Bones. It's American politics.
Okay,
So at the last Al Smith charity dinner, that was the famous speech where Trump openly bashed Hillary Clinton. And she was sitting there with some like Roman Catholic cardinal. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was like basically all a show. And we'll get into that a little later. But one thing that I discovered about Mary Ann McLeod, which is Trump's mom, was that she was a member of the Columbian Order of New York. Now, his mother has Scottish roots and tied to Scottish Freemasonry. And Trump's Manhattan apartment, the way it's decorated, has Freemasonry all over it. And it's also decorated after Louis XIV, who was nobility.
Of course.
So anyway, the Columbian Order that Trump's mom was a member of is also known as the Columbian Illuminati. Now, in the book by David Rivera called History of the New World Order of Illuminism, he claimed that the American Illuminati was comprised of 4 major power groups, and it was American Freemasonry, Skull and Bones, Phi Beta Kappa, and the Columbian Order. Okay, the Columbian Order included the who's who of democratic politics. It influenced and shaped the views of people since the 1800s, and it basically just degenerated into this society full of New York power, greed, and backstab. So not just anybody could attend these meetings. So right off the bat, you know, we can't pretend that Trump's parents were nobody. So you got his dad, who was in the Ku Klux Klan, and it's been recorded. And then you have his mother, ties to Scottish Freemasonry, and part of this Columbian Order. So this rags to riches story that they want us to believe that Trump's dad just was a nobody that started building skyscrapers in New Jersey. I mean, it's pretty much bullshit, right? And so it's easy to see that Donald Trump was born into this world and was destined to be on the world stage. Now, if you look at Trump's oldest brother, Fred, he died of alcoholism and he refused to join the family business. Now, ask yourself, what is so bad about real estate? You know, what was the real family business? And I don't think people actually think about that. Not to mention Fred's daughter, Mary Trump, who was Donald Trump's first cousin, came out with a book. Can't think of the name of it, but she exposed the Trump family. And if the Trumps were genuinely good people, why would anyone come out with an expose like this? Granted, she made a lot of money, but so many people were Trump supporters that she probably would have made more money had she put out a positive book about Trump. Like, all the Trump people did not want to read this book. They bashed it. They bashed her. But in this book, she claimed that Trump was a womanizer. He made embarrassing comments about how big her boobs were at the time. I mean, this is your cousin. And the book goes in.
He says this about his cousin. He sexualizes his daughter. You think he's not on the Epstein on the Epstein list?
into a lot of detail, and I'm going to reference this as I go on, but let's get into Donald Trump. And
Real quick, I
yeah.
just want to touch back. Donald Trump a womanizer? I don't see it. That's just me, though. I mean,
Yeah,
I can
totally.
appreciate a good-looking dude. That ain't him, all right? You know?
Totally out of character. So since he was young, Trump has been, and you guys know this, he's been on numerous TV shows, talk shows, and what was the question that he was always asked?
Are you going to run for president?
Mr. Trump, are you going to run for president?
I
guess
I didn't realize that, but yeah, it makes sense.
Every interview. And so he would toy with them by saying no, and he would give them his political 2 cents, and he looked handsome and young and charming, and everybody liked him.
Trump, what makes him Trump an evil person? I don't know. Promoting Project 2025, then denying it, when he was running for to regain the presidency, that he didn't know about it. Lying about the Heritage Foundation. What else? Oh, yeah. In Chicago, when kids were given a program, all right, to help black kids, right, escape the toughness of an inner city environment through education, the Trump administration sued the school and that program and said it was discrimination against whites through the Civil Rights Act, Article 6, which was a lie. Okay. What else? The Central Park 5. He still hasn't apologized for demonizing those 5 boys, but instead sides with the crooked prosecutor, Linda Fairstein, who sent those 5 boys to prison for the false charge of rape. Those boys were exonerated due to DNA evidence and the real rapist, Matias Reyes, who confessed to raping that white woman. Okay. The big, beautiful bill that's going to throw millions of people off their medical insurance, health insurance. Okay. Trump is evil, just like Biden, just like Obama, just like Bill Clinton. Oh, and the fact with the T visas for human trafficking victims, okay, who made it very difficult for them to get the T visa. Yeah, Trump is evil.
And to me, this was just predictive programming at its finest. Why would this random New Yorker who builds skyscrapers go on Phil Donahue? This is 1987. Who cares? Like, he was propped up for a reason. Okay, not
the sleaziest shit, though. It's like construction. That's where the mafia, money.
We got another one. Obama 2028. The same Obama who says that a black boy with a straight black father is not enough. Black boys need to be around gay men. Yes, Obama 2028. I can't do. Wow. Wow. Yeah. The same Obama who lied about reparations as soon as he got to office as president, reneged on that. Yeah, that Obama. That Obama who tried to bring the alternative lifestyle to Kenya, and the Kenya president shut him down. Yeah, that Obama.
Laundering, all that crap is, and yeah.
100%.
Yeah, you're right. Like, that's a good point. Like, why him, right? There's tons and tons of guys who build skyscrapers or buildings and commercial real estate and stuff, but it's like he's the one, like you said, you've seen him on all these talk shows, and it was very, now looking back on it, it's very clear.
Here we go. Obama was forced to do this by the small hats. What do you think Trump is forced to do? What do you think Biden's forced to do? What did you think Reagan was forced to do? They're not innocent. They're not. They knew what they were going there for. They knew what it was all about. They knew what that job was about. They knew what the job entailed, and they copped to it. They wanted to be political prostitutes. They knew what they were doing.
For whatever reason, he was the chosen one at that time to play this role.
Absolutely. And not to mention, he attended Fordham, which is a Jesuit school. All of Donald Trump's children attended Jesuit Georgetown University, every single one of them, except for Barron. So it'll be interesting to see what Barron does in the future. But if you fast forward to the other interviews he did as he got older, you know, he would toy with the media talking badly about the Clintons. He would plant seeds by saying, like, if I were president, I would let everybody know who was behind 9/11. And then you had the famous Obama birth certificate situation where he's planting seeds about how Obama wasn't born in America, and kind of like a design, like from the 80s, you know? So it's like he's telling the American people who he is, what he believes. And when he became president, nothing was exposed, none of it. Okay. So now I'm going to get into the crime family, because this is really important. When Donald Trump was young, he was heavily associated with the Gambino crime family.
Trump is a saint, says SCV Weekender, aka Weekend Guy, aka Dogfather. Trump is a saint. Okay, would you let Trump spend the week with your family and trust him not to sleep with your wife or your daughter or your son? Would you trust Trump to give you a business plan without trusting he won't screw you over in the process if he's such a saint?
New York. He was friends with Robert Labuddy, who was an associate of the Gambino Mafia. He was also friends with Joey Sink, who was another Gambino associate. Joey Sink was a mobster, a con artist, and a felon who actually went to jail for stealing expensive art and was almost left for dead after being shot by a contract killing. He didn't die, but you know what he did go on to do? He became one of Trump's judges in the Miss Universe pageant. Okay? That's what he did with his life. So if you go back and look at all of the judges from Miss Universe, many of them were Gambino associates. This is the American Mafia. This is an extension of the Black nobility, Italian mafias that came to America, came to New York, and met Donald Trump. And okay, so in 1973, Donald Trump violated the Housing Act and engaged in illegal building activities that made it impossible for prospective tenants to purchase his property if you were Black. Okay, this was on the news. Everybody.
Trump's not racist, right? Trump's not racist.
Heard this story by now. So this is the same year that Trump met Roy Cohn, his lawyer. Okay, and they filed this countersuit against the government for over $100 million, and Donald Trump settled out of court, and it went away. And Ray would go on to be Trump's right-hand man to get him out of all of these shady situations up until his time as president. Okay, so Roy Cohn was the lawyer for John Gotti, Tony Salerno, and Carmine Galante, all associated with the Gambino crime family. That's how Trump met him, okay? So Trump purchased property for his casinos from the mafia hitman, Salvatore Testa. And it was the mafia who built Atlantic City and laundered their criminal profits through his casinos. And the Gambinos owned S&A Concrete, who were involved in constructing Trump's buildings in Manhattan. Okay. So now let's get into the Russian mafia. There's this guy by the name of Felix Sater. Felix Sater is a Russian mobster, and he pleaded guilty to over $40 million for stock fraud and money laundering orchestrated by the Russian mafia.
Now, Felix Sater was an advisor for Trump Hotels Corporation. Donald Trump hired this guy to run his corporation at one point. Now,
real quick, I just want to say, like, people are going to be like, well, he's just associated with what, dude, birds of a feather flock together. You're around these people for a reason. You choose to be around these people. You choose that guy to be your lawyer. It's so, don't keep it open. You open mind people.
Yes. So, well, what's crazy was Felix Sater started his career at Bear Stearns with Jeffrey Epstein.
Of course he did.
Okay. So he ended up, I know, like, you can't make this shit up.
And I'm pretty sure Bear Stearns is we don't even go down that road. Bear Stearns it's a government private corp. Like, it might have been phony. It might have been completely phony, honestly.
Yeah, and it could have been, but the fact that it's like written into this narrative,
it's incredible.
It connects so many people. So, okay, so Felix Sater, the Russian mobster, ran Trump Hotels, started his career at Bear Stearns, and then when he left Trump Hotels, he left to manage the company Bayrock. Now, Bayrock is a private real estate investment company that specializes in luxury residences. Now, Bayrock, I want you guys to remember that name, Bayrock. Felix Sater is also a Chabad Orthodox Jew who went to the same synagogue as Jared Kushner and Ivanka. Okay, so we're going to see a lot of this Chabad Orthodox Jew stuff pop up throughout the rest of the podcast. But I want you guys to remember that, and I want you to remember Bayrock. Okay, so another business associate of Donald Trump is a guy named Tevik Arif. Now, Tarev Arif is the founder of Bayrock. Okay, Trump convinced Tevik Arif to move Bayrock into Trump Tower. So he did, and it's at Trump Tower where this Tevik Arif met Felix Sater. And so that's why he hired this Felix guy to manage Bayrock. Now, Tevik is one of the biggest donors to the Chabad Jewish synagogue that Jared Kushner used to go to. Years later, he was charged with running a prostitution ring of young European women, including underage girls, off of Turkish yachts. So the guy that ran Bayrock was acquitted because the girls refused to testify against him. But to think,
why.
Yeah, but to think that Donald Trump did not know about any of this is just straight up denial. Like, you've got a guy working.
More proof that Trump is dirty.
In Trump Tower, who's running a prostitution ring, but Trump didn't know about it. Like, I just have such a hard time believing that.
This great businessman that's so involved in everything, and he knows all that's going on, but just missed that prostitution ring with little young European girls running in and out of your hotel. Just missed it.
Just totally missed that one. Okay, so let's get into Jeffrey Epstein. So we know, this is where it gets really good when we get into like Maria Farmer and all that. But okay, so we know that Epstein and Ghislane Maxwell used to frequent Mar-a-Lago a lot. We know that Trump has been photographed with both Epstein and Ghislane a lot.
Well, they both live there, right? They both had houses there, right?
Yes, they
like almost
yes.
neighbors in the same neighborhood or whatever.
Yeah, basically. And Trump was on record saying that Epstein was a great guy. And when Ghislane was arrested, he said in a press conference that he wished her well.
He did.
Now, why would anybody, especially the president of the United States, wish a human trafficker well? Like, there's no excuse for it. I don't care how much cognitive dissonance you have. Like, this is not acceptable, especially for a president. Like, it's whether it was awkward or inappropriate. Like, it was just, in my mind, I'm like, I can't believe this guy said that. And a lot of people just blew it off. Like, oh,
they explain
nice.
it, yes, or it's tongue in cheek and things like that, or that's when they always talking in code. It's like, stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
I know. I
Stop.
can't. It's just straight up denial.
Yeah.
So then we have the testimony of Maria Farmer. Now, Maria Farmer is an American artist
and she was the first person to report an incident to the New York City police and the FBI about the abuse and misconduct of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, her sister Anne backed up all of her claims. And Maria Farmer was introduced to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislane Maxwell through Eileen Guggenheim. Now, you've probably heard of the famous Guggenheim Museum in New York City, but the Guggenheim family are big in New York, and they are part of the Zionist mafia. Now, Guggenheim Partners is an investment firm that manages at least $300 billion in assets. That is reported. So the Guggenheims are related to the Jewish Rothschilds through marriage with the Stewart family. Now, the House of Stewart is from Scottish Freemasonry. They're a Scottish Freemason family. And the Jewish Guggenheims and the Roman Catholic Stewarts also covertly work with the Waltons of Walmart dynasty. And Arthur Stewart, the 8th Earl, is a British noble whose mother was a Guggenheim, and his grandmother was a Rothschild. I mean, these families are all connected. So to think that like the Guggenheims, like it's just a lie. No, they're all connected. And so this is how Maria Farmer met Epstein, through the Guggenheims, okay? So Maria Farmer supported Virginia Giuffre and her claims that Virginia was raped by Alan Dershowitz, if we remember Alan Dershowitz.
Who is always on the fucking news now, too.
Yes. Okay, so Alan Dershowitz was reported to have visited Jeffrey Epstein's New York City apartment so many times. He's on film, he's on camera coming in and out of the building. Well, let's talk about Alan Dershowitz. He was the high-profile lawyer for Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and Donald Trump. And he defended O.J. Simpson as part of the Dream Team with Johnny Cochran and Robert Kardashian.
Yep.
Dershowitz is also a member of the same Jewish Shabbat synagogue as Jared and Ivanka. Okay? These are patterns. These people are all part of the same circle, the same. You keep seeing the same names pop up in the same synagogue in New York City. Okay? So Maria Farmer also reported, now this is where it gets crazy. Maria Farmer also reported that Trump's first wife, Ivana, was friends with Ghislane, and Ivana helped procure underage girls for her. Okay, so this was reported by Maria Farmer.
Like, they go to high schools and stuff like that.
This is crazy. This is insane. So it runs deep. No wonder Trump is flipping out when people are asking about the Epstein files. Like I said, he should have never ran for president. You should have found some way to get out of bankruptcy. You have this on you? Nah, man. Nah. But I sure do like the fact that he is president, because he exposed how many people don't care on the right, don't care about family, women, and kids. We know the left don't, but now we're seeing it with the right in 4K. So we see both sides of trash.
Flowers and all that crap. I read those stories.
Yes. So if Ivana Trump was complicit in human trafficking while she was married to Donald Trump, what does that say about Donald Trump? Right?
Well, this is the second strike you just already brought up. There's the Trump Towers, and then there's this right now.
Yeah. And let's talk about Ivana, because she's very interesting. So Ivana Trump, interestingly enough, was a child actress who went on to become a skier in the 1972 Winter Olympics. And she met Trump when she was very young. And they were married in 1977. And together they became like this tabloid power couple. They were invited to the who's who of all events, including celebrity parties, Hollywood events, and Washington, D.C. Like together, Donald and Ivana, they met all the presidents. They were photographed meeting kings and queens and princes and princesses of foreign countries. Now, why? Like, why them? Why were they so special?
I was going to say, dude, this is what a child actor had turned into skier, and that's the greatest person you want to see. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. And she was, I've been trying to trace her back to Czech nobility, but it's very hard because I don't trust Wikipedia. And so I didn't really have time to get into Ivanka's father and who he was, but I have heard, I can't say if this is true or not, but I have heard that he had ties to like prominent Czech families, and that's where she was born. So there could be something to that she might have been born into this situation as well. But I can't prove that right now. But in the 1980s, Donald and Ivana were introduced to the Gaetani family. Now, the Gaetani family is an Italian Roman nobility family. The Gaetanis they used to be a papal bloodline that ruled as princes and counts all over Lazio, southern Italy, where the mafia was prominent, near Sicily. And Raffaello Gaetani oversaw the Gambino crime family of New York City and the Gottis. And these are the two mafia families that Trump would go on to be connected through business. Okay, so he was friends with the Gaetanis. And that is how he met the Gambinos. Okay, and through the marriage of his wife. Now, Donald and Ivana divorced in 1990. And her reason was for cruel and inhumane treatment. And she was forced to sign non-disclosure agreements, and it was illegal for her to talk about Donald Trump unless she got permission from him first, and had to go over all the content that would be discussed. But she basically couldn't speak. Now, that's if you believe the newspapers. But of course, she ended up monetizing. She wrote 2 books. She went on Oprah. She did reality TV. And what's funny is that after her divorce to Donald, she ended up dating Raffaello Gaetani, the black nobility mafia guy that introduced them. So there's pictures of Ivana and Gaetani all over the internet. You just do a search. Well, after Ivana broke up with Gaetani, she went on to marry a guy named Rusano Rubicandi. Now, he's an Italian actor and connected to the Italian nobility. They got married in 2008. They were married at Mar-a-Lago. Trump's sister officiated it, and guests were Italian celebrities and nobility, the Hilton family, and Ghislane Maxwell.
This is one big reality show that they're playing in front of us. That's all this is. Like, okay,
yes.
My ex-wife's going to get married at my place, and like, what the, who?
Yeah.
In what world does that happen?
It doesn't. And Ghislane Maxwell was there at Mar-a-Lago for this.
Probably the maid of honor.
Yeah, probably. Okay, now this is off topic, but since we're talking about weddings, I also want to say that Ghislane Maxwell also attended Chelsea Clinton's wedding.
Yeah.
And if you think about all these people and how they're not connected, okay, not to mention that Trump and Hillary are related through their connection to King Edward III of England. And also, before we move on, I want to just
Wait, what?
Yeah, back up. You can't just throw that out there.
Trump is in some way related to Hillary Clinton.
They share a common ancestor. I can't say how many generations it goes back, but King Edward III, they both descend from him.
I love it. I love it.
Yes, and I'm gonna get into Trump's ties with Bavaria and Germany later, but that just, you cannot deny that. So they are actually related. Donald Trump has been a longtime friend of Bill Clinton. They've been photographed golfing and eating together since the early 90s. The Clintons have been to Mar-a-Lago. I mean, we're talking 30 years. Okay,
He donated to him, didn't he?
Yes. Okay, that's the other thing. He invited them to his wedding when he married Melania in 2005. He donated to the Clinton Foundation, and it was reported that it was only $100,000. But you know, to him, that's chump change. Yeah. So all this talk about lock her up was just another show. It was another lie. There was no justice for the Clinton Foundation whatsoever. Okay, now speaking about Black nobility, Prince Carlo, who is the head of the Italian Royal House of Bourbon, his family were members at Mar-a-Lago. And you can actually Google Prince Carlo Mar-a-Lago and you'll see pictures of him and Trump. Now, the Italian House of Bourbon are the direct descendants of the founding families of the Jesuits, the House of Farnese. The House of Farnese built the first Jesuit church in Rome called the Gesù Church. Okay, so that's another Jesuit connection. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing, but stay with me because I'm going to tie in human trafficking. Okay, there are two houses of bourbon. Coincidentally, Trump is connected to both of them. One house of bourbon is from Italy, and the other house of bourbon is from Spain. Now, when Trump became president, the media was reporting that Trump was holding hundreds of children in these former Walmarts. I don't know if you guys remember that. This was right when he became president.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So in the 1900s, the early 1900s, there were thousands of babies who were stolen from Spanish hospitals, and they were human trafficked by Spanish priests, Spanish Jesuits, and Spanish nuns. Now, this is a true story. You can look it up. It's been reported time and time again. Thousands of babies were human trafficked under the Spanish House of Bourbon. Now, after the media reported that Trump was holding these thousands of illegal immigrant children from Mexico and Latin America, who did he meet with? He met with the Spanish House of Bourbon king, Philip V. And what did they discuss? They discussed trafficking. Now, I find that to be very coincidental and very strange because Trump became the face of the human trafficking savior.
It's a slap in the face. He's the one doing all this shit. He's like, you gotta stop it. I got goosebumps.
Fucking way.
Now, I do not believe, I have one golden rule. I do not believe anything the media reports, the American media.
Sure.
And there is no exception, even with Trump. He was not, this human trafficking facade where he was out there saving kids is just total bullshit, okay? Now, that, again, like you got goosebumps, that was the connection that I made that I was just like blown away because I'm like, wow, he really did meet with King Philip V. That was like the first royal family that he met in his presidency. And it had to do with human trafficking. So if we move on to other cabinet members of Donald Trump, Alex Acosta was the U.S. Secretary of Labor, and he approved the plea deal with Jeffrey Epstein and then closed the investigation. Now, many of Donald Trump's supporters claim that Trump was shutting down these child trafficking networks, but the truth is he employed people who were shutting down the investigations into these networks. So they have it completely backwards. And then when you get into other cabinet members of Donald Trump, you've got the Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, who ran Rothschild and Sons before he worked for Trump. You've got Paul Manafort, who's a Georgetown Jesuit, and he's been a puppet in politics since 1977. He's got ties to the mafia, the Gambinos. You got Roger Stone, a total political shill.
Oh, yeah.
Kellyanne Conway, her grandfather was Jimmy the Brute DiNatale of the Philly mob. And then you've got Stephen Miller, who was an Ashkenazi Jew, who teamed up with Steve Bannon, who he was high level up at Goldman Sachs. And together, Steve Miller and Steve Bannon orchestrated the branding and the presidency of Donald Trump. Okay, now Steve Bannon and Steve Miller got together years before 2016, and they created and wrote all of the future policies for Trump. And what they did was they pitched this idea to Trump back in like 2013. And Trump got on board and he was like, okay, I like this, I can probably do this. And what they did was the three of them, Steve Bannon, Steve Miller, and Donald Trump had a meeting with Christian Zionist Sheldon Adelson. And after this meeting, Sheldon agreed to back Trump because he thought Trump could actually win. So Sheldon Adelson was Trump's biggest donor. And Trump agreed to go along with the Christian Zionist movement. This is how politics works. Now, I made an in-depth video about Christian Zionists. For anybody that does not understand what Christian Zionism means, I would suggest going to my BitChute and listening. But basically, in a nutshell, Christian Zionists believe that when the state of Israel was established in 1947, it fulfilled Bible prophecy and sparked the end times. And so that's why there's all this, like, you have these like Joel Osteen's and these like big Christian Zionist preachers that are on TV talking about the end times. That is their deal. They believe we are living in the end times. So I don't want to.
Yeah. Basically, you know, Christian Zionism is basically white supremacy, just using the Bible as an excuse to commit atrocities against people who are not Christian. It's basically what it is. And with the whole Israel thing, they lie because the Israel that we have here, that's manufactured. That was manufactured in 1948. Okay. And they are not the people characterized in the Bible. Okay. And you see with the Ted Cruz and the Tucker situation. Okay. You see how badly Ted Cruz messed that up. Okay. And basically when you do your own research, you find out that with the promises of the Bible to Abraham's descendants, it's a Israel of faith. And when you look in it, you see that they're not the people of Israel. I mean, they're doing horrible things to Palestinians. They're committing atrocious acts to children. They're not. No. Okay. And Israel is built on a faith. All right. It's not a political state. It's not a manufactured political state. Okay. And reading it, you understand that. Okay. So basically, it's just, nut job, fascist dictators who just want to use the Bible to oppress others, just like how this country was formed through manifest destiny, saying it's God's will for racist whites to own slaves and stuff like that.
But that's basically what it is. So speaking of Christian Zionists, Trump had many of them in his administration, including Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, and Betsy DeVos. Now Betsy DeVos, her brother is Eric Prince. Now Eric Prince and Joseph Schmitz were Roman Knights of Malta, and they both were Blackwater executives. Blackwater was involved in murdering Iraqi civilians and trafficking weapons under George W. Bush. Now, these men were indicted, and some of these men from Blackwater were actually arrested and sent to jail. But Donald Trump pardoned them in 2020.
Oh, shit. I remember that. It was a big deal. Oh,
yes.
my God.
So when we were all sitting around waiting for Donald Trump to pardon like a Julian Assange or somebody, and Julian Assange could be a puppet, I don't know, but he ended up pardoning these guys.
And overlooked all that because everyone was sitting there banging their fists on the table for you said, Julian Assange or something. Oh my God.
Yeah, okay, so what's crazy is Joseph Schmitz, the other guy from Blackwater, he was the Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Defense under George H.W. Bush. Ina Hatzfeld, her maiden name is Walker, and she's a member of the Bush family. She served as the CIA director under Trump.
Yep.
And I know this is like common But just putting it all together, there are so many Bushes in the world of American politics, banking, and media.
And all the every CIA director is that throughout the course of history is related to each other.
Yes. And so the Bushes and the Trumps are one and the same. They both derive from noble houses in Bavaria. And Trump made deals with George Prescott Bush, who was the land commissioner in Texas during his.
And Prescott Bush got his money from Nazis. He was holding Adolf Hitler's money.
Presidency. And so before we go on to Trump, I just want to do a quick overview of the Bush family. So George H.W. Bush killed over 1 million people. He was the president. He had oversight of the CIA and the military-industrial complex even after he left. Now, he was connected to DARPA, who was ran by Stephen Walker Bush, Raytheon, founded by Vannevar Bush, Northrop Grumman, whose chairman was Wesley Bush. Okay? Now, I'm not going to name all of them, but there are over, right now, there's
I mean, all the companies that have major military contracts with the U.S. government? No way.
Imagine that.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, I'm not going to name them all, but there are over 15 Bush family members who are famous for politics and entertainment. And of course, many of them were in Skull and Bones, the American Illuminati.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you got the Bushes who have Skull and Bones ties, and then you have the Trumps who are connected to Freemasonry and the Columbian Order. Now, that's 3 of the American Illuminati groups. Okay, they're one and the same. Now, the Bush family worked with the Nazis in and their Union Banking Corporation seized. They were seized for trading gold with Tyson family of Nazis in Germany. Now, 2.3 trillion tax-paying dollars went missing under George H.W. Bush's presidency. Okay, the Bushes are descendants of the German House of Bush. The Bush family ruled as feudal lords in the regions of, Ravensburg. And the Bush family are also intermarried with the German-Dutch royalty house of Lippe. Prince Bernhard of Lippe started the Bilderberg Group.
I swear to God, you're making this shit up.
I know.
Oh my God.
Now, do you guys remember that quote where George H.W. Bush said that if the American people knew what they have done, they would be lynched in the street?
Yeah.
Okay, now that,
If they
There
knew
you
what
go.
we have done, we would be lynched in the street.
Okay, so anyway, I'm going to get off the Bushes now. So back to the Trumps. So let's talk about Jim.
All right, so we'll keep it pushing. Comes to that. Okay. Let's move on to the Epstein.
I found this place in the woods.
And a lot of people hoping that we'll learn a lot more. Great new piece called The Rise of Jamie Dimon on her website, unlimitedhangout.com. I encourage all of you to read it. So what is this connection, this Jeffrey Epstein connection, and how big and wide does this go beyond Jeffrey Epstein? Investigative journalist Whitney Webb joins us now. Welcome back to the show, Whitney. Great to see you.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me back on.
My pleasure. And you've written, so first, I just want to start there at the beginning, sort of about Jamie Dimon, and then we can get into the broader implications of this and how wide this goes. Jamie Dimon is going to be interviewed in Jeffrey Epstein lawsuits, and a lot of people hoping that we'll learn a lot more about this relationship and Jeffrey Epstein and these deeper connections here. So first, for our viewers who don't understand or have any idea why Jamie Dimon would be involved in this, who is Jamie Dimon and how is he involved with Jeffrey Epstein?
Okay, so for people that don't know, Jamie Dimon is the CEO, and he has been since the early 2000s of JP Morgan Chase, one of the biggest banks on Wall Street. And he's considered one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, Wall Street banker today. And he's currently in the news in relation to the Epstein case because there is a lawsuit being brought from the U.S. Virgin Islands, which argues that Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking activity was directly enabled by Jeffrey Epstein, particularly by two J.P. Morgan executives. The main focus of the case being Jess Staley, who left the bank in around 2013. But they've alleged that lawyers for the USVI have alleged that Jamie Dimon himself was aware of the situation and directly enabled Epstein, and the JP Morgan Chase has denied this and is trying to make Staley, essentially the scapegoat for the whole case and trying to keep Dimon away from it. But he's going to be Dimon is going to be forced.
It's the Dave Kelly. It's the scope and depth that is startling. Yes, because you're seeing that we're being ruled by families. We're not a democracy. We're being ruled by families like we're in Middle Ages. The only difference is they wear suits, not really fancy medieval stuff, and where our military is lied to and told we're fighting for freedom, fighting for corporations and greed of rich people who never see war. Yeah. Hi, my great grand uncle was the cardinal in Boston. I promoted my grandfather into the Knights of Malta. I just figured out where my family's money came from. Yeah, man. It is what it is. I mean, what can I say? We can't choose the families we're born in. Just, I don't know how to handle that. Just
to offer a statement or potentially be interviewed under oath. So it remains to be seen what's going on there and how deep those questions will go. Obviously, the U.S. Virgin Islands is making a very praiseworthy effort to hold this particular bank to account. And let's keep in mind that a few days after this this exact lawsuit was filed, the Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands, Denise George, was fired. And so a lot of people see a connection between that firing and her filing of this particular lawsuit, which has been allowed to advance in U.S. courts despite J.P. Morgan and Chase trying to prevent that from happening. So, but what hasn't been said, right?
Well, no, I just want to ask you, so we'll get to the what hasn't been said part, but just to be clear, you say that J.P. Morgan Chase was enabling this sex trafficking by Epstein. That's what the lawsuit alleges. Can you be specific on how were they enabling that?
So, so someone that was actually at the hearing sent me a leaked recording of it, and there was a lot that happened there that did not reports. One of them being that it was very clear from J.P. Morgan reports that Jeffrey Epstein allegedly was having a jury firm at the time, but his accounts at J.P. Morgan reflect no activity potentially involved any sort of clients. It was very odd financial activity, and he was making payments to known victims of his sex trafficking scheme, and he was using JP Morgan to give significant loans to Jean-Luc Brunel's MC2 business. And Jean-Luc Brunel, of course, is a major part of the Epstein case, particularly as it relates to the sex trafficking activities. And he, of course, was arrested in Paris and died under the same circumstances as Epstein did in a jail cell in what was ruled a suicide, but is very unlikely to actually have been the case. And JP Morgan is alleged to have directly facilitated that because given their own internal admissions about the oddities of the report, the oddities of Epstein's account, something should have been done long ago and nothing was done. And they allege, the USVI say that they'll be providing documents that show that this went far beyond just Staley and actually go straight to the executive suite, meaning Jamie Dimon.
Wow. So what's not being said? I'm sorry to interrupt you earlier, but I want to know how this enabling process is unbelievable and much deeper than I even anticipated.
Yeah, so basically what's not being said is that the reason Jamie Dimon is head of JP Morgan Chase at all really has to do intimately with the circle around Leslie Wexner, particularly his right-hand man, John W. Kessler. So, Leslie Wexner has two hands, and as someone who's researched him a lot, essentially you have on the one hand Kessler and you had on the other hand Epstein. That's how close these particular associates of him were. And Kessler, in addition with a particular family from Chicago that's part of the same network I write about in the book that has a lot of connections to Wexner, the Crown family of Chicago, were essentially the people that orchestrated Jamie Dimon's installment as CEO of Bank One in the year 2000. So the Crown family essentially orchestrated the ouster of the previous CEO, and then Kessler and this sort of Wexner team on the board of Bank One, along with Crown family and their associates, came together and chose Jamie Dimon to be the CEO of Bank One. And Bank One, a few years later, was acquired by JP Morgan Chase, and Jamie Dimon put in charge of that. So essentially what my article shows is what Bank One was before that point, and going way back, very Wexner-centric, allegedly involved in all sorts of criminal activity, including money laundering, arms deals, and very shady financial connections with Leslie Wexner's The Limited, among other things. And on top of that, if you look at Dimon's history before he became CEO of Bank One.
Yeah, this is on my channel, I'll be trying to put it on my Rumble. That's what I'll be trying to do.
He was building Citigroup with his mentor, Sandy Weil, and that began with a company they acquired in 1985 called Commercial Credit Corporation. And as I note in the article, Commercial Credit Corporation and its parent company, Control Data Corp, are essentially espionage cutouts tied to these networks of intelligence and organized crime that were working together to essentially make money, but also were subverting U.S. National security by engaging in illicit technology transfers. They were spying on the U.S. military, and they were, essentially shipping off a bunch of sensitive U.S. military and other types of technology to the Soviet.
Yeah, it'll be put on my other channel. It's called Radical Thought 791, Charlie Rowe. You can check me out there.
Union at the height of the Cold War, in the same networks that include people like Robert Maxwell and his confidant and lawyer, the father of current U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Samuel Pisar. And a lot of these people seem to have been centered around this particular think tank called the American Committee for U.S.-Soviet Relations, which had a lot of these organized crime figures, people close to the Crown family like Paul Zifrin, people close to Robert Maxwell, people like Armand Hammer, whose father was a Soviet spy and tried to buy a bank where a lot of U.S. congressmen had accounts for the purposes of financially blackmailing them. These guys were extremely aggressive in promoting tech transfers to the Soviet Union for the purpose of essentially equalizing the playing field in a sense. But as Samuel Pisar told Congress in the early 70s, it was to create a single unified world economy where you have private Western capitalist enterprises with communist state-run enterprises and ostensible adversary nations. The goal of creating a global, a single, economic economy. It's very disturbing stuff. And this company that was at the center of that is now Citigroup.
Wow. So a unipolar banking system, a unipolar run by these unelected people running the world economy. That's basically, they laid this out in the 1970s.
So Pisar essentially said the nation state's becoming irrelevant because it's all about private enterprises in the West merging and intermingling with communist state-run enterprises in Russia and China and elsewhere. And a lot of the major facilitators of this were, people like Robert Maxwell people like Samuel Pisar and a lot of these other businessmen in this particular nexus that involve a lot of organized crime and intelligence connections. Because essentially, at the end of the day, they want to be, whoever controls the money controls the world, right? So if you build a single unified world economy, you control everything.
And as you've pointed out, your piece and otherwise, that they've been at the heart of each of these financial collapses, right? They've been there right in the middle of it.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah. So, for example, in the 1980s, there was a major crisis with savings and loans, and you had an insane amount of collapses of savings and loans institutions throughout the United States.
All right. So we're literally seeing a lot of what's going on, okay, with this Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. And we also got Donald Trump. Okay. They run the world, man. It's really a scary thing. It's really scary what's going on. Okay. These pedophiles, PDF files. And it's insane. The Hollywood connection and celebrity pimps supplying kids to other elite on Epstein's islands. What if I told you Naomi Campbell, Tyra Banks were pimps, and both were highly involved and connected to Epstein, Diddy, Steve Harvey, and many others. So much bigger to show. So much bigger information. Good grief, man. This did it. Damn. Just
made copies of the evidence. There was one police officer or detective from. Let's talk about the evidence. So, there's been reports that the FBI is like scrubbing evidence, any kind of evidence, but especially tied to Jeffrey Epstein needs to be not just fired, but they need to be prosecuted.